October 21st, 2020 morning session of the Portland City Council. Keelan, please call the roll.
Hugh Daly.
Here.
Fritz.
Here.
Ryan.
Here.
Hardesty.
Here.
Wheeler.
Here, under Portland City Code and state law, the City Council is holding this meeting electronically. All members of the council are attending remotely by video and teleconference, and the city has made several avenues available for the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. The meeting is available to the public on the city's YouTube channel, eGovPDX, and portlandoregon.gov/video and Channel 30. The public can also provide written testimony to the council by emailing the council clerk at cctestimony@portlandoregon.gov. The council is taking these steps as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the need to limit in-person contact and to promote physical distancing. The pandemic is an emergency that threatens the public health, safety, and welfare, which requires us to meet remotely by electronic communications. As always, thank you all for your patience, your flexibility, and your understanding as we work through these challenges to conduct the city's business. Now we'll hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum.
Thank you.
Hi, Robert.
To participate in council meetings, you may sign up in advance with the council clerk's office for communications to briefly speak about any subject. You may also sign up for public testimony on resolutions or the first readings of ordinances. The published council agenda at portlandoregon.gov/auditor contains information about how and when you may sign up for testimony while the city council is holding electronic meetings. Your testimony should address the matter being considered at the time. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Please disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify.
Robert, did you cut out there?
Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being placed on hold or ejected from the remainder of the electronic meeting. Finally, please be aware that all council meetings are recorded.
Well, we got the gist of it. Robert, you cut out there, but I think we got the gist of it. Your bandwidth's a little low. So with that, Keelan, we'll start with communications. First individual, please.
821, request of Tony Davis to address council regarding police reform bill. We heard from Tony Davis that they've withdrawn their request.
All right, next individual, 822, please.
822, request of Valerie Illustre to address council regarding wood smoke. We also heard from Valerie that they won't be presenting today.
No worries, thank you. Next individual, please.
823, request of Matt Stein to address council regarding proposed drone testing facility in St. John's.
Very good, welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and all the hardworking city commissioners. I'm testifying as a native Portlander, a 21-year resident of St. John's, and a business owner on the property adjacent to the proposed Verizon drone facility. There are a multitude of reasons to oppose this project. I'm sure you've heard some. Here's a few more. The process for this project has been rushed and with almost zero outreach to the community by the port or Verizon. The land use decision by the city of Portland is still under review thanks to a couple of 30-day extensions. The neighborhood only began learning about the proposal less than 2 months ago. It's taking time to get the word out and allow people to voice their concerns. The port, a public entity, has a record of conducting its marine-related business without bothering to engage the public. Almost 20 years ago, the port decided to move the rail car loading facility at the Toyota lot down to the end of Bradford Street The port assured the community that this would not be a disruptive to the neighborhood, and for the last 16 years now, our community has had to live with excessively long blockages preventing access to and from our park, Cathedral Park, and the blowing of train horns at all hours of the day and night. This happens every day. And now they want to add the incessant buzz of drones to an area that already suffers from excessive noise pollution and other environmental impacts. Also, Verizon's not telling the truth about their plans for this site. They're spending millions to build an access road, bring in fiber optic cable, and develop the facility. Their representatives came to our neighborhood meeting a month ago and misled us. They quoted operating data from their temporary site in Hillsborough to try and convince us that the activity at this site will be minimal, with only a couple of drones flying a couple of times a day. I and my neighbors refuse to believe that they're spending that kind of money to fly for just a couple hours a day. They also misled people about the technology that they are developing. The primary purpose of this facility is learning to control the drones via the 5G network from a remote location. They left that meeting expressing a desire to meet with the community again and talk about the possibility of a good neighbor agreement. We have not heard a peep from them since. As we all know, this parcel of land, along with all the land in this area, is stolen land taken from indigenous people many years ago. The port decided it needed the land to expand the Toyota facility, so it used eminent domain to force its sale in 2007. That project fell through, and the port has now sat on that land, vacant land, for 13 years. Now, this project has come along, which is completely unrelated to the reason that the port used eminent domain to take the property, and there's no effort to consult with any potentially affected parties as to the appropriateness of the proposed use and its potential effects on the community. I and many of my neighbors believe that a much better use for this land would result if it was returned to Native people. The proposed use is not appropriate for this site. Verizon's assertion that the public right-of-way, that is the Willamette River, is the safest place to test their unproven and dangerous technology is absurd. They should lease or buy a piece of parcel of land away from population centers where they can fly their drones without putting any human at risk of injury or death if one of their drones flies out of control. I ask that the city deny the land use permit and engage with the port and the community to determine a more appropriate use for this small parcel of land. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Testimony. Next individual, Keelan.
824, request of Michael Pouncil to address council regarding proposed drone testing facility in St. John's.
Very good. Welcome. Michael, are you unmuted?
Sorry about that.
There you are. I hear you now.
Yeah, sorry about that. Michael Pouncil, and I'm here as chair of Portland Harbor Community Advisory Group and representative of Portland Harbor Community Coalition and the Braided River Campaign. No military drone testing in North Portland. No military drone in North Portland. Skyward IO Verizon is proposing to build a drone facility on 6.51 acre site owned by the Port of Portland, located at 8940 North Bradford Street near Cathedral Park. Skyward Verizon proposes to test drones by flying them down the Willamette River in repetitive patterns. Our community oppose the siting of this facility at this location for several reasons. We are deeply concerned about privacy issues for people living and working near the north reach of the Willamette River. Drones represent a remarkably intrusive and annoying presence that will significantly impact the quality of life of river users, local neighborhoods, businesses, and visitors to parks such as Cathedral Park, Kelly Point Park, and Forest Park. Finally, drones represent a real threat to local birds of prey, including peregrine falcons that have nested on the nearby St. John's Bridge for more than 20 years. We also believe that this facility do not believe that this facility meets the definition of river-related or river-dependent as required under zoning codes. The city of Portland has asserted that it currently does not have adequate supply of this type of land. So it's not appropriate to utilize this parcel for purposes that lie outside the scope of approved use and designation. We respectfully request the following: discontinue negotiations to locate this facility at this location, deny any permits necessary to locate this facility at this location, engage community and tribes to determine a better use for this riverfront site, revisit decision-making, zoning, and limited public notification policies related to land use changes to be more inclusive and equitable in coordination with community, and also honor the city's August 22nd, 2012 resolution of the City of Portland, Oregon, protection of people's public, of the people public against the use of unmanned aerial drones. We once again repeat, no military drone testing in North Portland. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Michael. And Keelan, I believe we have one more individual for communications.
That's correct. 825, request of Marianne Schwab to address council regarding camping next to Laurelhurst Park Playground.
All right, good morning, Marianne.
Good morning, everyone. It's been an adventure just getting this Zoom app. In my 80s, almost, trying to get into Zoom and this program. I only wish the city would hire the same people League of Women Voters did. I just hit the link and there you are. I've gone round and round and round for over an hour. You've even downloaded who knows what just to get to this app today. It's not fun. I'm really, really frustrated. So
All right.
Here I go.
All right, thank you, Marianne. Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a tidbit here, just those little bumps in the road for the public that you want to come testify.
Agreed. All right, go ahead and start.
I'm going to take a deep breath and start over. Okay.
All right.
Hello, everyone. Today, there are roughly 80 individuals sleeping in tents and parked cars next to Laurelhurst Playground Park between Southeast 37th Avenue and Southeast Oak Street. One neighbor reported seeing rats during the day, apparently no longer fearing humans. Hearing that, I fear that it meant a time when a rat slips under a tent and nibbles on toes. If that rat is free to continue moving through broken bike parts, items of stolen property like baby strollers, weapons, I've got to slow down. I'm too frustrated. Anyway, a lot of things are happening.
Marianne, we'll give you a little extra time, so take your time. We want to hear you out, so don't rush it.
Thank you. It's only a matter of time when rat will slip under a tent and nibble on toes. After the Labor Day windstorm, I met a young man who recently lost his job and was willing to gather helping hands rake up the falling twigs and leaves. Having no cell phone, I offered to call and check in with Parks, only to be told Parks is not able to loan rakes, again, for lack of funding to hire a supervisor on site. The irony here, a few days ago, Mayor Wheeler asked we Portlanders to step in and assist the homeless. How can we help with City Hall closed to the public? How can Commissioner Amanda Fritz set out barrels to gather socks for the unhoused? Socks are 2 for the price of 1 on Black Friday day throughout Freddy's. Will Prosper Portland do the same to gather jackets and sweaters? As for the Portland building and the 1900 building gathering items of clothing or blankets. Yes, the city and Multnomah County employees are working from home, and many of whom also donate items. The City of Portland Office of Management and Finance, Homeless and Urban Camping Impact Reduction Program has provided a hand washing station, 1 honey bucket, trash bags, but no dumpster. It's too dangerous when even the neighbors start using it as their dumpster, and who knows what's in it, and it puts the people at risk when they have to empty it. That's why they prefer the garbage bags. However, I don't know where Waste Management is with their tubs to empty the tubs just to get them off the sidewalk so people can walk on the sidewalk in between. I won't describe it. So as for the Lorehurst Playground locked restroom on site, I'm told that the Portland Parks does not have the resources to hire a plumber. Hello, what is the cost to empty and refill that hand washing station and to switch out the smelly buckets serving 80 visitors? One tiny example of why I am voting for Mayor Wheeler, who supports changing the antiquated Jim Crow commission form of government to focus on a grassroots representation by geographic district. And then we can hire a skilled manager to track each of the bureau's budgets and no more overspending. And we can also get a computer system to where each of these bureaus' computers actually talk to each other. There needs to be more citizen involvement in the city budget process. We need more city involvement contacting Salem between government, intergovernmental lobbyists and our representatives and senators serving in the legislature down in the Capitol. There's a huge disconnect. I've yet to hear we're going to have an in-service to give us training again this year. Brian Hoop breaks my heart. Some other lucky city agency has hired him. We are losing more and more highly skilled employees as well. The human infrastructure, not just in our district offices, but also within our city government. Try being a volunteer here in the company, calling a city office saying, due to the pandemic, yes, we do have a pandemic, and I encourage every human being listening to this to continue wearing your masks and whenever out in public. And above all, be sure to vote on November 3rd. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your patience. Sorry for the frustration, but I'm so riled up over this computer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And we all share your riled upness when it comes to the computers and everything else. And I'm sure Keelan and her team will take a look at the links and make sure it's a little bit easier to access. Thank you, Marianne, for your testimony this morning. Keelan, have any items been pulled off of the consent agenda?
No, we've had no requests.
Very good. Let's call the roll on the consent, please.
Udaly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
All right, consent agenda is adopted. Next, we'll go to the first time certain item number 826, please.
Authorize construction and permanent funding not to exceed $25 million to River Place Phase 2 Housing Limited Partnership or another Bridge Housing Corporation affiliate for a new construction of a 178-unit affordable rental housing project.
Colleagues, this is exciting. We're pleased to have another affordable housing project for the City Council's consideration that addresses the needs of some of our low-income community members. We're also pleased that this is the third affordable housing project in the City of Portland to receive funds from the recently voter-approved Metro bond, and the first with Metro funds to appear before the Portland City Council. River Place Phase 2 continues the redevelopment of a critical site in the North Macadam urban renewal area, one of the highest opportunity areas in Portland's downtown core, close to transportation and jobs, for which the City Council back in 2017 approved funding and a long-term lease to Bridge Housing Corporation. In Phase 1, as you'll recall, the City Council approved the Vera Apartments, a 203-unit building, which has completed construction and is leasing up. And now Phase 2 comes before the Council with an additional 176 affordable units. And I will be turning this over to Shannon Callahan, the director of the Portland Housing Bureau. I want to give you a heads up. I will be introducing a technical amendment or a cleanup amendment shortly. I'm still waiting on the language, but don't let me vote on this before I put the amendment on the table. With that, Shannon, go for it.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Keelan, could you please put up the PowerPoint if you could?
Yeah, and Shannon, can I do this? I'm sorry to interrupt. I just got the amendment language and it's very brief. So why don't I go ahead and put this on the table? Colleagues, I move to amend item 826 by striking the words, quote, and Metro bonds, unquote, from Directive A. This is a technical cleanup. If anybody has questions, I'm sure legal counsel would be happy to regale you with the reasons for this. Otherwise, I'd like a second.
Second.
Good, second. And can I call the roll on this technical amendment, please?
Daly,
Aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Hardesty, Commissioner Hardesty, Wheeler,
Aye. Why don't we keep the vote open on that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Aye.
All right, the
Forgive
amendment
me.
passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Director Callahan, for the interruption. I just wanted to make sure I got that on the table before I forgot.
No worries, Mayor. I actually appreciate that we've gotten that done this morning. Keelan, I'm sorry, could you put up the PowerPoint or do I need to do that? Oh, thank you. Good morning. Shannon Callahan of the Portland Housing Bureau. I'm joined here this morning by Alyssa Gertler, the Planning and Development Director of Metro, and Runa Dottapaneni of the Senior Vice President of Bridge Housing to request your support for River Place Phase 2 affordable housing development. Next slide, please. First, I'd like to start with just a little bit of background, as the mayor indicated, about this parcel and this site. This project comes to you as the result of a 2015 joint solicitation from Prosper Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau. In 2015, the Bureau was actually concerned that we would not reach our goals in the North Macadam urban renewal area. But due to the advocacy of community members in increasing the amount of available TIF for affordable housing development, Council and especially Commissioner Nick Fish, we were able to secure this parcel for affordable housing development. In 2017, as the mayor indicated, Council approved the first phase of the development of the parcel, which you can see here on this slide, the Vera Apartments, which today is providing homes for Portlanders with 203 units. We'd originally intended back in 2015 that the second phase of this development would be for market rate development. But in the intervening time, the Portland Housing Bureau, Bridge Housing, and Prosper Portland believe that a better use of the site is actually for affordable housing development. Next slide, please, Keelan. So particularly about this project, it is located on the streetcar line, providing great transportation access to and from the site. As the mayor indicated, it will have 176 affordable housing units, which we estimate will provide affordable housing for 339 people. Of the affordable units, 20 will provide permanent supportive housing serving veterans, and 7 will serve very low income households at 30% or below. Just for reference for everyone who's listening, 30% AMI would equate roughly to $22,000 or less for a couple in the metro region. Next slide, please. One of the most exciting features of the property is that 48 of the units will be family sized, including 18 3-bedrooms. As you all know, we have a shortage of larger sized bedroom units within the city of Portland, and we're very pleased that this property will be welcoming families. The starting rents for the properties range anywhere from $484 for a studio at 30% AMI up to $1,400 for a 3-bedroom. The building will be regulated affordable for 99 years, and construction is expected to be started in December of this year and completed in fall of 2022. The building is a LEED Gold building. Next slide, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. One of the things that we're most excited about is the service partnerships that Bridge Housing is bringing to the property, including a partnership with Impact Northwest. So in addition to supportive housing for veterans, there'll also be resident services provided, especially family services, including early childhood development, youth programming, and parenting support. Next slide, please. This project does use $25 million of North Mac TIF funds. As well, Metro will be stepping forward and has approved the use of just over $1.7 million so that we're able to bring this property to fruition. All told, PHB's TIF funds will be leveraging $56 million in outside funds to make this project possible. Next slide, please. So at the beginning, we talked a little bit about the commitments that we've made to the community in North Mac starting in 1999. And I wanted to just provide an update to council and the community on where we are in terms of that progress. We are overachieving on the overall goals we have for the district, but still have progress to be made on low-income units. And we are pleased to report that we still have $17 million remaining in the district, which gives us assurance that we'll be able to achieve that target and overachieve our overall goals for the South Waterfront. Next slide. So as this is the first project before you that will use Metro bond funds, I wanted to just remind the council about the process for the implementation strategy. Metro has already approved Dekum Court, and which is a home forward project in North Portland. We are presently in the second phase of our local implementation strategy, which involves providing gap funding for projects in the pipeline. Particularly today, we're talking about Parcel 3 Phase 2, but we also wanted to give you an update on a second project that Metro will be providing funds for, which is Findlay Commons. We're also in the process of initiating our third phase of the Metro implementation strategy. So we released a supportive housing solicitation last Friday to the community, focused specifically on pairing Metro bond funds with opportunities to provide supportive housing. We're currently working with Metro and the Joint Office and other partners to address supportive services funding from the recently passed measure to support supportive services regionally. And then we also plan to release a additional solicitation with Metro bond funds in early next year, spring of 2021. So I would like to introduce, if I could turn it over to Alyssa. I think, Alyssa, you were on the call. Alyssa Gertler of Metro to talk about the 3 Metro bond projects that are in process in the city of Portland, and especially Findlay Commons. Alyssa?
Hi there. Thank you, Director Callahan, and great to quote unquote see you, Mayor and Commissioners, and be here today to support affordable housing in the South Waterfront area, an area that exactly meets the goals that we have in Metro for equitable housing that has access to transit, jobs, and services. So we're very pleased to be here today. Next slide, please, if you don't mind. This project that Shannon was just talking about represents significant progress on our Metro bond funds. As you've heard, it is the 3rd approved project using Metro bond funds in the city of Portland. Dekum Court and Findlay Commons, which I'd like to talk just a little bit about further. Next slide, please. Okay, Findlay Commons, I just wanted to say a few words. It is along the Powell Division Rapid Transit Corridor that many of you worked with us on, and is a key part of implementing that memorandum of understanding that we all signed, the city, Metro, and East Portland, as part of the transit project to provide equitable housing. This is from Home First Development and Do Good Multnomah. It's going to be serving veterans with supportive housing services and permanently affordable housing. Next slide, please. As Director Callahan mentioned, it's a partnership with the Joint Office of Homeless Services, who will be providing financial support for the supportive services, and all of the 35 units will be supportive housing. It's a great example of a community use of underutilized space. St. Mark's Lutheran Church made the project possible by providing unused parking space behind their church. This is a great example of being able to do this gap funding that Director Callahan referenced in order to make the project move forward. Metro is happy to be part of this project and pleased with the progress that the city is making on our Metro bond so far. Overall, just as a data point, Portland has accomplished 25% of its goals for Metro's bond funds with less than 13% of the funds so far. And that's exactly the kind of performance we've been hoping to see from you guys. Next, we're looking forward very much to working on the alignment of the housing bond program with the supportive services measure so that we can bring together the capital resources, the rent assistance, and the support services to provide even more housing for the most vulnerable community members. So it's a pleasure to be here to support both Findlay Commons and River Place Phase 2. And now I believe I'm going to turn it over to Aruna from Bridge Housing.
Yes, hi everyone. I just wanted to introduce Bridge Housing to folks who are not familiar with Bridge. Bridge Housing was founded back in 1983 in San Francisco. We opened our Portland office about 7 years ago and have partnered with PHB on, I believe, 4 projects to date so far, including the Abigail, the Vera, which is the first phase of this development, and Songbird, which is actually in lease-up mode in Northeast Portland. We're just really excited to start construction on this development, bringing an additional 180 units to the neighborhood, working with stellar partners like Prosper Portland, PHB, Metro, the Portland Veteran Affairs, and Impact Northwest. And so I just wanted to let everyone know we're excited to start construction on the second phase since we just finished leasing up the first phase, or about to finish leasing up the first phase.
Thank you, Aruna. I'd just like to, before I turn over to back to you, Mayor and Council, for questions or comments, just wanted to acknowledge all of the team members at the Housing Bureau that have gone into making this project happen. Our team is working on 40 active projects right now under, as we all know, pretty unusual circumstances, and really, really working very hard. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge and thank our team manager, Jill Chen, and Siobhan Badau, for all of their work on this project. They have seen the first phase of this project forward and the second phase, and all of our partners, Metro and Bridge Housing, Impact Northwest, that are working to make this possible. So thank you very much, and that concludes our presentation this morning.
Thank you, Director Callahan and Alyssa and Aruna. Thank you for the presentation. And Director Callahan, I want to add my thanks to the list, and particularly I want to thank you for your leadership of the Housing Bureau during a very dynamic time period. You've got a lot on your plate. That's good. We want you to have a lot on your plate. So congratulations to you and your team. Commissioner Udaley, then Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Director Callahan. Nice to see you. Thanks for the presentation. This is a really exciting project, and I'm always happy to hear updates on how we're using our housing bond funds. This is really, well, no, it's a question. So has that 17 million remaining, have the $17 million remaining in the fund been allocated yet?
No, Commissioner, it has not. We would be looking to find another development in the future. We've been having conversations over time with various property owners. I mean, I think initially, remember, we were talking to Zidell Yards. We've also been in conversations with OHSU, as they are a major property owner within the district, about ways that we can pair our affordable housing funds with their funds for future development. So no, we do not have set plans for those funds at this time.
All right. I just want to put the suggestion out there that we should be trying to put together some kind of acquisition fund in anticipation of foreclosures and the opportunity to buy distressed properties and preserve some of the natural occurring affordable housing. We know that Wall Street investors and speculative real estate investors are waiting with bated breath and billions of dollars to snap up those properties. And I am hoping that the city and Metro and the state and the federal government, for that matter, get serious about creating acquisition funds. Thank you.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. Shannon, I just want to say that this partnership is a model that I am truly excited by. As you know, many times you come and I'm whining about, what do you mean, just 2, 3, 4? These are the kind of projects that make me proud to be on the city council and helping to lead an effort that is absolutely critical for our community. And I want to thank Metro, Impact Northwest, and I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the other developer that just moved here, this beautiful woman who just made the presentation. Aruna, what's the name?
Aruna with Bridge Housing.
Bridge Housing. These are the kind of partnerships that make us proud. These are the kind of partnerships that show that we really invest our dollars well. And so I just want to thank you for what I know was an extremely hard process. As someone who serves on the Board of Human Solutions, I know what it takes to build truly affordable housing and what a nightmare it is. And I just want to say thank you. I definitely am always questioning the Housing Bureau about what they're doing and why they're making this decision or that. But this is one of those days that I'm just like, I'm in awe at the partnership and the opportunity that this is going to present for some really needy people in our community. And so, and I want to put a plug in with what Commissioner Udaley said. We must start buying up properties when we have that opportunity, because that opportunity is not going to come around again. And so the more creative we can be and the more resources we have access to that we could actually acquire properties, it's going to help us provide at a faster rate more housing that people can truly afford to live in. When I look at housing at 30% and 60%, that is housing that is desperately needed in this community. And just thank you all. I know this is the beginning of the project, but I'm excited and I can't wait to see the end result. And by the way, it's beautiful renditions of housing. So I always appreciate beautiful housing that our community members get to live in. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Commissioner Ryan.
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Director Callahan and your partners. This was such a refreshing presentation. We have had a few come before us recently, and some of the themes have been, where's the family housing? How can a family of 4 fit into that supposed low-income affordable housing unit? So to see real 3 bedrooms is refreshing. To actually see that it takes $22K a year threshold. So we have many of our part-time or essential workers, which COVID has once again reminded us how important essential workers are. So to actually have housing in the central city that people that do provide services for us is just, I don't know, it's mind-blowing that we have to even talk about this as being overwhelming, but it's just so refreshing to finally really see this. I also was really excited to hear that you had early childhood systems built into the unit. Did I hear that? And that made me kind of surprised and happy too, right? Okay. Can you tell me, I don't know, I should know this, but increasingly if we build affordable housing for families near the lovely Willamette River, which you can almost swim in now pretty much in the summer, what elementary school will they go to? Do you know the answer to that? And it's not trying to get you, I'll look into this too.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, I actually don't know that off the top of my head,
okay.
But I could get that for you.
Yeah, because if we keep building affordable housing that actually includes families, we want to make sure that we're working with the school district to build that system. And I think those were my main points. Oh, also I wanted to ask, is the closest real grocery store, we know what I mean by real, where you can actually get away from a convenience store, is the closest store Safeway at this time up by the museum?
I believe so, yes. I mean, there's long been a wish for a grocery store closer in the South Waterfront community.
Yeah, just thinking out loud with you about how important it is that we get some affordable, real services for families where they can get food at a much better price point. But anyway, I'm just really thrilled and excited to be on the council at this moment and to see that the Metro funds are being expended. It almost seems like record time. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Daly, do you have your hand raised again, or is that just residual? Very good. Public testimony, Keelan, do we have anybody signed up?
We had no one sign up for this item.
All right, very good. This is an emergency ordinance. Please call the roll.
Daly.
Well, thanks again for the presentation. I'm a big fan of the community partners involved, and I vote aye.
Fritz.
Commissioner Fish would be really happy, and thank you for continuing his legacy and his work, and thank you for the partnership with Metro. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks to everybody. Aye.
Ryan.
Yes, it's just a great partnership. It's the right development at the right place, and it's the right time. So enthusiastically, aye.
Hardesty.
Thank you once again, Director Callahan and your team. Can't wait for the grand opening. I vote aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted as amended. Thank you, everybody. We have a couple of minutes prior to the next time certain, so why don't we move to items 835 to item 835, a second reading.
Update loss control and prevention code to streamline coordination and implementation of citywide loss prevention activities and remove the loss control and prevention advisory committee.
Colleagues, this is the second reading. We've already heard a presentation and had an opportunity for public testimony. Is there any further business on this item? Seeing none, please call the roll, Keelan.
Daly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye. The ordinance is adopted. 836 is also a second reading. Please call the roll.
Amend administrative policy, loss prevention policy to streamline Bureau loss prevention plan procedures and implementation.
Colleagues, this is also a second reading. Please call the roll.
Daly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
All right, the ordinance is adopted. And then our last second reading, which will get us right to 10:15, item 840, please.
Authorize price agreement for pump station improvements for professional engineering design services for a total not to exceed amount of $15 million.
Colleagues, also a second reading. Any further business on this item? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Daly.
Aye.
Fritz.
Thanks very much to the staff who did an excellent presentation last week. Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
All right, the ordinance is adopted, and according to my official clock, it is now time for our 10:15 time certain item number 827, please.
Amend permit fee schedules for building, electrical, land use services, mechanical, enforcement plumbing, signs, site development, and land use service fee schedule for the hearings office.
Commissioner Ryan.
Yes, good morning. So today we have before us the proposed fee changes for the Bureau of Development Services, which will be referred to as BDS. Most of my colleagues are very familiar with BDS. Many of you have actually served as the Oversight Commissioner. But for those tuning in the public, BDS is responsible for administering and enforcing the state building code, as well as administering and enforcing the city's zoning code and regulations on floating structures, erosion control, signs, murals, property maintenance, and portions of the tree code. 98% of BDS funding comes from permit fees and charges for service. Fees need to be set at a rate to cover the cost of providing these services. Before the pandemic, BDS expenditures increased due to the growing personnel cost and recent increases in rent to better serve the community. The COVID-19 pandemic triggered an economic downturn that has impacted the construction industry, particularly large commercial projects such as hotels, retail, and other office buildings. As the pandemic swept through Oregon, construction was considered an essential business and wasn't shut down by the governor. BDS had continued to provide services throughout the stay-at-home order while adhering to physical distancing guidelines, adapting processes to be able to serve customers remotely and online. BDS has taken proactive and prudent steps to reduce expenditures, including a hiring freeze, eliminating all essential expenditures, reducing overtime, offering a severance incentive, scheduling reductions and voluntary furloughs. The citywide mandatory furloughs and paying freezes are also helping to reduce the Bureau's expenditures. Fees from BDS programs administering the state building code are regulated by state law, and revenue from one program cannot be used to fund other local programs such as the administration of the zoning code, sign code, or tree code. The fee changes proposed today are necessary to maintain fiscal stability while also providing continuity of service delivery. In summary, BDS expanded capacity and increased their expenditures pre-pandemic to better meet the needs of our city, and the economic downturn we face as a result of the pandemic has created a significant shortfall that this proposed fee increase only partially addresses. I will say in my short time of working with this team, I've been impressed with their focus on being careful with how they spend down the reserves. I also want to acknowledge the previous commissioners that were overseeing this bureau to help with building that account, that rainy day account. And boy, has it been raining of late. And so today I'm going to turn this over to the director, Rebecca Esau, Elshad Hagabi, and BDS Budget and Finance Manager Kyle O'Brien to provide additional background and information about this proposal. Take it away.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mayor Wheeler, Elshad Hagiev, Deputy Director for the Bureau of Development Services. I'm accompanied by Kyle O'Brien, BDS Finance Manager, to present to you fee changes for the Bureau of Development Services effective as of December 1st, 2020. As Commissioner Ryan mentioned in his excellent introduction, the Bureau is funded solely, majorly by fees. 98% of our funding is coming from fees and charges for services. Only 2% is covered by the general fund. The Bureau is trying to keep the fee changes as gradual and as low as possible to incentivize compliance with the state and local codes. For a lot of years, the Bureau didn't even raise the fees, specifically in years of fiscal year 13-14 through 18-19, when the cost recovery was high and a lot of projects were coming in, larger projects. The fees were even decreased in 16-17. As Commissioner Ryan mentioned, currently, as of July 1st, the Bureau's expenditures went up significantly due to introduction of the blended facilities rate for downtown buildings located in the downtown core. Our rent went up by $3 million. The fee changes that are presented to you today, being effective as of December 1st, 2020, will partially offset that increase in rent. We are expecting to generate approximately $2.9 million in additional revenue to cover that increase in rent. In addition to that, in prior years, there were significant increases in COLA and personnel costs, PERS, and even though we didn't have any COLAs yet as of July 1st, there is an expectation that at some point those will be introduced, specifically for employees that are covered by union contracts. We were planning to bring a fee change proposal to the council in May of this year. However, we decided to postpone this due to a lot of uncertainty associated with COVID-19. As Commissioner Ryan mentioned, all this time the Bureau was providing services to our customers. We were still issuing permits, doing inspections, reviewing plans. And during that time, the Bureau was able to move from in-person interaction with our customers at DAC to virtual realm. Our plans are being submitted electronically right now. The inspections are, some of them are being done remotely via video inspections. A lot of things are reviewed electronically using the latest software. The changes are slow, they're gradual, but they're there, and the Bureau is striving to continue moving everything towards the digital realm. As Commissioner Ryan mentioned, the construction activity, specifically in the Portland metro area, was hit very hard by the economic recession caused by COVID. Specifically, that relates to larger projects, multifamily buildings funded by private dollars, not public dollars, hotels, offices. Those are basically stopped. And we're not really expecting anything to recover for at least 2 to 3 years from now. We did work with our financial advisory committee. That's a very unique committee that only exists at BDS, where we consult with local economists on future predictions. And again, this is very unique to us because our revenues are coming from fees and charges and directly related to construction activity. What we heard from economists is that it's going to take 2 to 3 years for economy to recover, and construction will be at the tail end of that recovery. So we are, even before COVID started, we were noticing reductions in the multifamily buildings coming in. So we did institute some measures before that. As soon as we went into a shutdown in March, we instituted the hiring freeze. We cut all of the non-essential expenditures. Thank you for adopting the safety net ordinance. We are using that ordinance to cut our expenditures and to offer our employees voluntary options to either take voluntary furloughs or take severance packages. As I mentioned, this fee change will bring $2.9 million into our Bureau. I want to stress one thing out is that that money is going to support positions. We're talking about 20 to 25 positions that will be supported by this fee change. Without that fee change, we might lose those positions. And the Bureau was very diligent, especially in the last several years, into bringing employees to our Bureau that specifically people of color and women, into classifications that are traditionally held by white males. We don't want to lose that staff. So that ordinance, that fee change means a lot to our employees and to our Bureau. I want to talk a little bit about the goals. The goals are of this ordinance. We're keeping up with inflation and our expenditures. As I mentioned before, there's a $3 million hit into our rent that is effective as of July 1st, and it's ongoing change to our rent obligations. We want to provide continuity of our services. As I mentioned, that these $2.9 million are supporting 20 to 25 positions. Without that fee change, we will be faced with potential additional layoffs. We're also adjusting some of our fees to make sure that we're recovering all of the costs that are associated with providing those services. We did, as always, we do outreach, and we specifically with our Development Review Advisory Committee. We presented our fee changes to them actually back in March, but then we did it again in September, and we don't have any objections from our Development Review Advisory Committee to these fee changes. We also did send notifications in the Plans Examiner, that's our newsletter, and we posted all of our fee changes on our website, and also our managers were reaching out to specific trade organizations to talk to them about fee changes. These fee changes are affecting most of our programs. We're talking about the building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, site development, science, enforcement, land use. We're not proposing any fee changes for the zoning enforcement program because the cost recovery is still pretty high there. Overall, fee changes are at around 5%. Some fees are going up a little bit higher. Some fees are not being changed, again, to reflect the cost recovery on providing services. With that, that kind of concludes my presentation, and we're open to questions.
Thank you, Elshad. Good presentation. Commissioner Hardesty has her hand raised.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ishad. First, I was struck by the sticker shock of a $3 million rent increase. Is that because of the renovation at the Portland building?
You're absolutely correct, Commissioner Hardesty. When Portland building was renovated, I believe the cost of the building with the furniture and everything, it's around $200 million. So the city issued bonds, and debt obligations. So now we have to repay it. To kind of equalize that repayment, they recalculated the rent for all of the building, including the city hall, and then basically increased the rent for all of the other buildings in a downtown core. To give you an example, and again, I don't have exact numbers, so these are approximate numbers. Prior to rent equalization, our rent was around $30 per square foot. Now it's around $60. So that's
a little outrageous. Let me just say that our rent would increase so significantly. Let me just ask this question. Based on what we've learned through COVID-19 about the ability to work remotely, it may be possible that you may not need as much space as you have used in the past, right? Just thinking about how workers work today. And so I hope that you and Commissioner Ryan are thinking about what's a more cost-effective way for you to be able to provide the services that you provide. Because honestly, I'd go rent a building in North Portland a whole lot cheaper than you can rent the space that you have in the city's building. I think that's a little outrageous that a rent would go up that high. So that's number one. Number two, I was struck by the significant increase in demolition and deconstruction fee. Most of the fee increases, as you said, are around 5%, but it's a significant jump from 571 to 969 when we're talking about demolition and deconstruction fees. Why is that increase so significant as compared to everything else?
Every year we do cost recovery analysis of certain fees, and we estimate how much time we spend specifically on the deconstruction and demolition fee that relates to inspections. Turns out that we do conduct a lot more inspections that fee is actually able to cover. That's why you see that higher increase there.
And there was no pushback on that significant increase?
We haven't heard anything back from anyone regarding that particular fee. And thank you for your comment about the rent. We are looking into reducing our footprint, and we do have also leases with non-city buildings, and we're going to be reducing our footprint significantly. Unfortunately, for some of those, we're locked into the rent, so that it's very, very difficult to get out of that. And unfortunately, the sublease market does not exist right now.
It will, though.
Hopefully.
A lot of cheap office space available relatively soon. And my last one is just a statement. I know that BDS has been through this before, right? Because you are totally funded 99% through feeds. And I just want to compliment your forward thinking and your analysis about, where to make the cuts, where to increase your feeds, because this is hard. It is hard. And as you said, this is not coming back for at least 2 to 3 years. And I think that's an optimistic projection. I think it's going to be a bit longer than that. So I just want to applaud the work that you've done and the thoughtfulness that you put in this. But the city should make your job harder to balance your budget. And I'm just shocked that a $3 million increase in rent would even be a possibility. But thank you very much for your work. Excellent presentation. You are a vital service to the city of Portland, because nothing gets built if it doesn't go through the bureau, through your bureau. And so your thoughtfulness about how to retain the last hired, because you're right. I was actually shocked at what the demographics were in your bureau. But in my time here, I've seen the intentional effort to diversify your workforce, and I applaud that, and will continue to support you as you do that. Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Hardesty. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Fritz, then Commissioner Daly.
Thank you. I just add some context, and Elshad is an excellent team player and did not throw the council under the bus, but in fact it was a council decision to equalize rents, and there were winners for the Portland building, but also for City Hall and the other city facilities. It was considered not reasonable to have some buildings be less expensive per square foot than others. And so there were winners, which I think included City Hall and our commissioners' bills, and there were definitely, Elshad's nodding. And then there were the big losers were, one of them was BDS, because the 1900 building was due to be paid off, and so they were looking at a decrease in their rent. But that was a kind of a long-term policy decision that certainly, especially with given the timing now, is really unfortunate for BDS, and I appreciate the work that was done. Also need to credit Elshad and former director Paul Scarlett for creating the financial sustainability plan while I was in charge of BDS, that really looked at the metrics and made sure that when the trends started, that they were able to act swiftly. And so it's challenging in these times, but I'm really confident that plan is going to set the course. And then finally, Commissioner Hardesty, another comment on yours. The Bureau has done a lot of work on racial equity and gender equity, which has been a challenge as well over the past several years. Dora Perry, who worked with me and helped establish the Office of Equity and Human Rights, went to be the equity manager. She just recently retired in June. So it's good to see that the ship is turning and that there's a lot more results being seen. And also, I think we are all aware that in many of our bureaus that have been previously dominated by white men, that because of the profession, that there is a huge opportunity for making sure that more women and people of color are employed. So challenging times, but also some good things to celebrate. And again, thank you, Elshad, for all of your work over the years. You're definitely the person I want to have in charge of the finances at this particular moment in time.
Thank you, Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, nice to see you, Elshad. I was also at one point the commissioner in charge of BDS, and I'm glad to hear that some of the good work that we did back then has continued. Especially pleased to hear that progress continues to be made with the permitting software, which was probably the biggest headache or potential nightmare that I inherited when I was assigned that bureau, and I was really determined that we would update that software and be able to receive online permit applications and plan submissions. And I'm so happy that the mayor carried that project over the finish line. I also want to note that council has some responsibility in the increase in the demolition permit fees, because we there is additional work involved with demolition now that we passed the lead and asbestos abatement rules. So that's, I imagine, one reason why those fees have gone up more. And I certainly understand the challenge of achieving cost recovery and balancing that with what we think our customers can bear. So I just want to ask a clarifying question, which I think I know the answer to. These increases are still less than cost recovery for the Bureau and only affect the permits and fees charged by BDS, not the SDCs and other development fees charged by other bureaus. Is that correct?
That is absolutely correct, Commissioner Udaley. This is only BDS fees, does not involve any SDCs or any fees that are charged by other bureaus. And yes, we will not be fully recovering the costs on some of the fees, but the goal is to incentivize compliance. So that's why we're keeping our fee changes as gradual as possible.
Yeah, and I understand and support that. And my thoughts are with you. I know when I had the Bureau, we were still recovering from the recession in some ways, building our reserves back up and filling a lot of vacancies. And I can only imagine how tough this latest challenge is for the Bureau. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Udaley. Is there any public testimony on this item, Keelan?
Yes, we've had 2 people sign up. The first person is Ezra Hammer.
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, Honorable Commissioners. Ezra Hammer here with the Home Builders Association of Metropolitan Portland. It's not every day that the development community will come out, speak in support of fee increases, but I wanted to take this opportunity to give a real special thanks to Elshad and to Rebecca and to the entire leadership team at BDS, who has managed to weather this COVID-19 storm and associated economic downturn with grace and with supreme ability. The Bureau was facing significant challenges that prevented it from operating at a reasonable capacity early on, and we've seen them rectify all of those issues over the several months. We certainly share Commissioner Hardesty's frustration at the increase in rent that the Bureau is being asked to pay, which is driving the bulk of these fee increases. But we wholeheartedly support their desire to ensure an adequate staffing level and an ability to process applications and permits in a reasonable and timely manner. And given the fact that these fees are necessary to help them accomplish that, we're here today to thank the Bureau for all of its hard work and to wish them the best of luck in the coming months and years as we work collaboratively to weather this economic downturn. Also want to congratulate Commissioner Ryan on his recent appointment to lead the Bureau. You have a fantastic team over there, and they are extremely capable. Thank you for your time, Mayor and Commissioners. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ezra. We appreciate your testimony, and thank you for your good words. Next individual, please.
Next, we have Angela Crowley-Koch.
Welcome, Angela. Angela, are you muted?
Oop, can you hear me now?
Yep, there you are.
Okay, I was having some problems.
No worries.
Okay, well, my name is Angela Crowley-Koch. I'm the Executive Director of OSEA, the Oregon Solar Energy Industries Association. I I have to say I'm a little bit frustrated at the tone of the discussion on this topic. From our point of view, the processing of permits is at a state of crisis right now with the city of Portland. Most of the conversation has been around commercial projects and the decrease in permit for those projects, which is true. But on the other side, there's been an increase in residential projects, and the permits for those projects are extremely backlogged. They used to take, in best case scenario, a few hours to a day to get a permit for a solar project. And now, since the pandemic, it has taken up to 6 months to get a permit for a solar project. As staff mentioned earlier, construction has been considered essential and has continued throughout the pandemic. While my members are trying to keep their workers employed and keep solar projects installed, things are grinding to a halt with the City of Portland's permitting process. Dozens of OCS members operate both in Portland and other jurisdictions, and all report that Portland's permitting is the most expensive, aggravating, and fraught with delay process in the state. Frustration right now is at an all-time high. These huge permitting delays are making things very challenging. And I hate to say it, but Portland has established a nationwide reputation as having a slow and extremely convoluted process for receiving a solar permit. On September 15th of this year, OCS sent a letter to Mayor Wheeler asking for his intervention to make the permitting more easier, more streamlined, and faster. There have been a few small steps taken by the Bureau, but they still fall short of what is needed to serve the citizens. The most frustrating piece is that neither in the mayor's response or the Bureau's recent changes was there anything to describe what the Bureau is doing to address the timelines and process in order to decrease delays. If we are being asked to support an increase in fees, we expect to see an increase in service and a decrease in the extremely long period of time that it takes for a permit to be issued. If the increased fees meant more permitting staff would be hired and permits would be processed faster, OCA would be in strong support. However, it sounds like from the testimony I've heard this morning that fee increases are simply maintaining the slow and cumbersome system that we have currently. And unfortunately, that makes OCA strongly opposed to these fee increases. Waiting 2 to 6 months for a solar permit or any construction permit is not conducive to an economic recovery. The residents of Portland demand more solar, and nowhere is this more evident than in the passage of the Portland Clean Energy Fund. However, with the current...
I'd like to hear her out. Let's go ahead, Angela.
Thank you. With the current status of permit review and issuance protocol for solar, we fear that this landmark opportunity and program will be ineffective. I've also heard earlier today that trade associations were reached out. I'll just note that no one reached out to us. And again, we'll just end with a disappointment to hear that staff levels are only being maintained, with the residential construction, including solar installation, being one of the few areas of the economy where we're seeing the current work levels maintained, pre-pandemic work levels being maintained. It is a shame that progress is being slowed and permits are being delayed by the city. It's a time when we should see an increase in staff and an increase in service, not the other way around. Thank you.
Thank you. And Angela, I think your comments are generating some desire for a conversation. Can you stick around for a few more minutes?
Yes.
Very good. Commissioners Udaley, then Fritz, and then I have some comments and questions as well. Sorry, it wasn't Commissioner Udaley, was a mistake. It's Commissioner Fritz.
Thank you. I'm wondering, I see that Director Rebecca Esau, who I, in my previous kudos to Elshad, forgot to mention that she's been really key to changing the Bureau. I noticed that she's on the call, and I'm wondering if she'd like to respond to what was just said.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you, Commissioner Fritz.
Morning.
Yes, we
very much admittedly have a backlog in permits. We are working on a system to get us beyond this temporary interim permit intake system that we have in place, that we put in place when all the city offices closed due to COVID. We're expecting that to go live in early December at this point. And it will get away from the appointment system that we're using for intake and let customers submit their permits online 24/7 from their home or their office. I admit that there have been some delays with solar permits. We've taken some steps and plan to take additional steps in the coming month to make those smoother and try to restore the type of service we used to have in person in the permit center and replicate that through an online system that we're also developing simultaneously to this intake system that we're developing. So we're undergoing huge changes right now with how we do our business and how we interact with customers remotely. It's still being developed, and I apologize for the time that it's taken. And I acknowledge the delays and the frustration out there, but it will get better. We've got an employee dedicated to working on the Portland Clean Energy Fund project with the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability. And this employee's full role is looking at what are the obstacles that create delays and working on ways to make it smoother and faster. Climate change is real. We want to get this process smooth and easy for people to be able to get solar permits as quickly as possible and with the least frustration involved. So we're not there yet, but we are moving in that direction.
Thank you. Commissioner Hardesty, I see you have your hand up. I'll defer till after you.
Thank you, sir. I thank you very much for that, Rebecca. I guess I just wanted to say that no dollars for a Portland Clean Energy Fund have gone out the door yet. We've just sent the application out. So that's not a really good example about whether or not delays are taking place. But I am concerned that it appears that we have, it appears that residential permit seekers are having a different experience than, say, business permit seekers. And so I'm wondering how we're going to make sure that we're not being over solicitous to business permit holders, and then residential permit seekers are like waiting. What I heard Angela say is kind of problematic, and that is something I've heard out in the community as well. And so do we need to, is there a plan to actually add more staffing? Because as we know, major construction projects are slowing down. But apparently when people are home for 6 months, they find all kind of home repair things that they want to do. So what's been the internal movement around shifting staff so that we can accommodate where the biggest need is at this time?
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. Yes, that taps into the next thing I was going to say, which was we've been moving staff internally. We have commercial plans examiners and we have residential plans examiners, and we've been moving the commercial plans examiners over to do residential work, since that is where the workload is at this point. We also have a program called FIR, stands for Field Issuance Remodel program. And this is a program where it's basically one-stop shopping. And it involves a relationship between the BDS staff person assigned to a project, and they do everything. They do the plan review and they do the inspection. It's very popular, and it runs on an hourly fee basis rather than the standard process. And because it's so popular, we had about 80 people, contractors, on the waiting list to get into that program, to register. So what we've done is we've moved inspectors and plans examiners over from our standard process into that program. And that program serves remodels and additions, residential remodels and additions. And so we're staffing that program up and have opened up the floodgates to take those 80 contractors who were on the waiting list to get them into that program. And that will provide a lot of relief in our standard process and eliminate some of that backlog and frustration. So yes, we are definitely making adjustments internally to try to provide relief.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. And I have a couple of comments or questions. And I don't know if maybe these are geared towards Angela and maybe they're geared towards Rebecca and maybe both. So maybe I'll start with Angela. First of all, thank you for the call earlier this week. I really appreciated it. And I appreciated you raising some of these specific concerns. Could you give the council some indication of 2 or 3 immediate steps that you believe your association would recommend to us that could potentially speed things up in the near term without jeopardizing some of the safety requirements that the city obviously is responsible for? What advice would you give us right now in terms of speeding up this backlog?
Thank you for the question. I think the biggest thing we'd like to see is a plan, a written down plan with timelines to give some assurance to not just our industry, but other construction trades that are seeing a continuation or an increase in workload. We have to tell our customers just to wait. And for solar in particular, the federal investment tax credit for solar it ramps down at the end of the year. So there is a rush to have solar projects finished and actually turned on by December 31st. And so we do need immediate changes. I would say the other big change would be in addition to the delays, we are frustrated by what I'll just call a lack of customer service when we're seeking these permits. And that ranges from things like staff not knowing the answers to questions, staff giving inaccurate answers about questions, different staff working on the same permit, different engineers working on the same permit, again, getting different answers, which causes delays. So it feels like there needs to be an education around solar permits in particular. I think the Bureau would benefit from a dedicated staff to solar permits so that folks know the answers to questions when they're asked by contractors and can provide the correct answers. Sometimes these inaccurate answers cause weeks of delays added on to the already long process. So I guess those are 2 quick ones. I mean, as I said earlier, I think an increase in staff for residential projects is really warranted at this time.
Thank you, Angela. And Director Esau, I want to acknowledge and thank you for the leadership you've provided the Bureau during what is obviously a ridiculously complicated transformational time. Obviously, we went through some significant technological changes, then there were office changes, and now there is the remote, moving the entire operation remotely. And I know you've done everything in your power to do so effectively. Let me ask you the flip side of the question to what I asked Angela. Under the emergency, first of all, I think we're all in agreement that solar provides one of the few rays of hope right now in this economy on the construction side, on the development side. And that is just factually true. This is one of the only areas where there is a stepped up opportunity. As Angela's just indicated, there are federal incentives that are near to expiration, and further delays will deprive our local green developers access to those benefits. Is there anything we can do, and you may not have the answer to this right now, but every 2 weeks I am effectively signing an emergency declaration under the COVID crisis on behalf of the city. And the emergency declaration gives me relatively broad powers. And some of those powers relate to economics and to continuing employment opportunities. Is there anything we can do in the immediate term short of trying to hire more people, which we all know takes time? And then there's not only is there the mandated recruitment period, but then there's training, and then there's systems, and then there's updating people and giving them knowledge about the codes. Is there anything we can do right now that could potentially suspend some of the regulations or some of the required checks that don't impact life safety, but could speed this process up right now and get some of these permits vested before the federal incentives expire? What can we do right now?
Thank you, Mayor Wheeler. Yeah, this has been on my mind, and we've been working on several things already. So I just want to recap a little bit of what we've done just recently. So September 17th, we put out a new program guide. It's available on our website because part of the problem we're seeing with what's causing the delays are applications that aren't complete, or they don't understand what the requirements are. So this program guide spells that out. It also liberalizes some things related to dormers and solar permits. And I think what we could and should be doing is additional outreach and training. I've got a communications team that does great videos, training videos, and what we can do is put together some training videos on how to get a solar permit and the steps involved and what's required and how to get a application submitted. We've also opened up an dedicated email line for permits coming in just for solar permits so that we can pull those out and deal with those quickly. So that's gone into place already. The other piece I would work on in the next week, I can put together a team of reviewers who that's what they do, and so that there will be dedicated contact people for the solar industry, and instead of having that work spread across whole review groups, we can have a dedicated team that does that work and thereby get greater consistency to address the issues of frustration where they're getting staff who may not know the answer, or they're getting different information from different staff. So those are the things that come to mind, but I'll continue to think about it and see what we can put into place.
Yeah, that all seems like it would be welcome. Angela, does that seem like that would be a good near-term resolution?
Having dedicated staff will definitely help, and I appreciate the director's commitment to do that within the week. I would say that videos on how to get a solar permit is not the right place to spend resources. We know how to get solar permits. In fact, we are often helping the staff and giving them information on how to process our permits. So I think focusing on more training of Bureau staff and making sure everyone is clear on how to do that would be appropriate. As I mentioned,
so your perspective is more internal consistency and internal training as opposed to a narrow focus on the external customers who are thinking of applying. Am I hearing you correctly?
That's right.
Okay, and that seems like that makes a lot of good sense. And Director Esau, we assume you have Angela's contact information? Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, it is.
Good. And Commissioner Ryan, I've noticed you taking copious notes, and I'd be kind of curious to hear your thoughts on some of this.
Yeah, I'm experiencing really good government right now, transparent dialogue, having someone give us critical feedback, having an authentic director speak in dialogue with them. So thank you, Angela. Thank you, Rebecca. I also want to say that, I'm new to this, but what I'm noticing is, the marketplace is going to be in your face, and BDS is in that arena. And so the reconfiguring, the repurposing of the staffing model we're not going to be hiring new staff. We just had a budget conversation yesterday. So hearing the nimbleness from Rebecca of late has been refreshing. We need to get some continuous improvement, results-based models and really drill into the transition from more of our labor force, if you will, focused on residential. And clearly, Angela was so on point to talk about the solar industry in particular. And Mayor, you were really on point to mention that this is a moment in time and we got to get currency flowing in our city in general. So this is really helpful. And I won't even talk about the rent thing. That was fascinating to get more context and knowledge on that. But I just really, I'm looking forward to working with the team at BDS and being responsive to this great critical feedback.
Great, thank you. Good discussion to be continued, obviously. And Angela, thank you for sticking around a little longer than people typically do when they give public commentary. But I know that you're knowledgeable on this subject. And Director Issa, again, as always, thank you for your tremendous leadership. Do we have any further comments before I ask for public testimony on this item? Keelan, do we have public testimony? Oh wait, we're in public testimony. Is there anybody else, is what I mean to say?
That's all, Mayor.
All right, very good. So this is the first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It goes to second reading, and Commissioner Ryan, I look forward to your further work on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next item is item number 828.
Proclaim October 2020 to be Breast Cancer Awareness Month.
Colleagues, we have a proclamation for the annual Breast Cancer Awareness Month. In the month of October, we honor and we celebrate the friends and family members who've been diagnosed or know somebody who's been diagnosed with breast cancer. I'd like to introduce two guests who are joining us today for this proclamation. We have the Mayor of Ridgefield, Washington, Don Stoss, who also serves as co-chair of the Pink Lemonade Project, and Susan Stearns, the CEO of the Pink Lemonade Project. The Pink Lemonade Project is a Vancouver community-based nonprofit that serves women and men affected by breast cancer across the Portland, Vancouver metropolitan area. The organization offers a wide range of programs and services for those with new breast cancer diagnosis, those who are active in treatment and recovery, or those who now consider themselves a survivor. The Pink Lemonade Project also has a financial aid and assistance programs for individuals in active treatment or recovery, a book bank to help talk to children about a new diagnosis, and outside of the pandemic times, offers a retreat series to help with the psychological and emotional side of getting beyond a breast cancer diagnosis. So, Mayor Stoss, and I hope I'm pronouncing your names. It's Stoss or Stoss?
It's actually Stoss, excuse me. I believe he had to step off for another 11 o'clock Zoom call. So it's just me, Susan Stearns. So thank you for having us.
We're delighted. Why don't you go ahead and say a few words about the Pink Lemonade Project?
Sure, happy to. So I am the CEO of Pink Lemonade Project, and while we are Vancouver based, we do serve the Portland metro area, and in honor of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, with my vice chair, who is the mayor of Ridgefield, as Mayor Wheeler said, we do have a tradition of doing proclamations with the mayors around the region. So we wanted to include Portland this year. This year is actually particularly significant for Breast Cancer Awareness Month because we've learned recently, and even since I drafted the proclamation, there's new research out which really has some alarming information about the decline in screenings since COVID has broken, and particularly around mammograms. And so what we're learning, or what we know just in general with cancers, is that the earlier the cancer is detected, of course, the better clinical outcome for the patient. So with these delays and canceling of screening exams, already there's an expectation that patients are going to show up later with more advanced cancers, which will require harder and harsher treatments, and truly a higher rate of cancer-related deaths. deaths. So it's an important year to really talk up breast cancer awareness and really encourage people to get back into their routines of screening mammograms. We know our healthcare partners are trying to get the word out and just assure people they can come in and get their tests done safely, and COVID protocols are in place. So it's an important year for that. And then just a little more with Pink Lemonade Project, I'd like to say that our founders are two Vancouver-based physicians, but since the beginning 10 years ago, we have served almost 40% of our total participants are from the Portland side of the river. So we're very involved, and we do provide programs, and in particular our 3-day retreats to many Portlanders. And then with the support of my board, but also with my joining the organization in the beginning of March, of all crazy weeks to start a new job in healthcare, we did really ramp up our financial aid program. So just to reassure you all that we have given out over $40,000 of cash assistance to those in breast cancer treatment and recovery right now who are getting their care across the Portland side. We've given dollars out on the Clark County side too, but cash assistance is going to help people in active treatment right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Susan. We appreciate it. Appreciate your being here. Before I read the proclamation, colleagues, anybody have anything they'd like to share?
Mayor, if I may ask a question.
You bet, of course.
At what age is it currently considered best to begin getting mammograms?
Good question. I'm not a medical provider, so definitely talk to your doctor first. But general population is about 40 years old still, or is the current standard. Although there are breast cancers, unfortunately, are being diagnosed in younger and younger women. And so definitely, if you're below that age, I would still have a meaningful conversation with the provider and see if there's some, you're in a higher risk category, the BRCA gene being a very obvious one, but there are others, and see if there might make sense for you to start screening at an earlier age. Again, breast cancer under or other circumstances is in many cases almost considered a curable cancer. So screening is very beneficial. And if you are at a higher risk, it makes sense to start screening earlier to catch a cancer as early as possible. And I am a survivor myself. You can get on the other side of it and live a long, long, happy life.
Thank you. And thanks for being here today.
Thank you all.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to thank Susan and the Lemonade Project. I really appreciated you visiting my office, I think about a year ago. And I just wanted to say how disappointed I am that there's not going to be an in-person event this year, but we will get to the other side of COVID-19 and we will be able to meet in person again sometime in the future. Just want to applaud the great work that you do. And your commitment to making sure that women have support and others who face breast cancer, they have support as they go through what is a very difficult, emotionally and physically draining process. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. And when we can meet in person again, we'll track you down.
I know you will. I have no doubt. Thank you.
Awesome. Commissioner Ryan.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I could do my comments during the vote. Sorry.
There's no vote. There's no vote.
There's that. Okay, so here I go. Susan, thanks so much for being here. Like most people my age, I know many people who have battled breast cancer and lost a dear friend in the late 90s. And say her name, Dr. Carol Hooper. She was a doctor that was tending to my healthcare needs, and she never talked about her own challenges. And but it allowed me to dig in then, and it's still the case, the disparities in funding for men over women. There's that in the healthcare, and I think women have more complicated bodies, and they provide children. So it's always been one of those, what? How did we ever get there? And also, it's a second cause of common cause of cancer and death for women, correct? Is breast cancer? Yeah. And also there's a big disparity between the deaths between, say, when you measure between race, so between white and African-American women, for example.
Absolutely.
So as a society, you know, we just have to keep doing better. But when we talk about racial equity, the disparities are everywhere, and they're definitely in healthcare. Anyway, I'm just really grateful for this proclamation, and thanks for being here. And I did wear a pink shirt today. I just want for the record.
Oh, nice, nice. I see it now. Thank you.
COVID challenges made it rough to get in, so there's that. But anyway, I'm glad I could still fit in it.
Okay, Mayor Stoss, I'm sure had a pink shirt on. He wears one every day of October, so he would have been there right with you.
Right on. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that then, Susan, it's my honor on behalf of the entire Portland City Council to read this proclamation here on behalf of Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas the American Cancer Society estimates that in 2020, the number of new breast cancer cases in the state of Oregon will be 3,880, which corresponds to 8 new cases each and every day. And whereas October is nationally recognized as Breast Cancer Awareness Month, an annual campaign to raise awareness using pink ribbon imagery, which aims to offer support for all those courageously battling this disease, to recognize the many breast cancer survivors, their supporters and loved ones, and to honor those lives lost to the disease. And whereas breast cancer remains the most frequent type of all new cancer diagnoses, and it's the second most likely cause of death for women in the United States, despite significant improvements in treatment and mortality rates. And whereas Pink Lemonade Project has the mission to educate, empower, and support those affected by breast cancer, those affected by breast cancer across the Portland, Vancouver metropolitan region, and aims to provide a community of support for those individuals and families going through a breast cancer journey. And whereas Breast Cancer Awareness Month is an opportunity to unite the community and spread the message about the importance of early detection, screening, and prevention to women and men in order to prevent additional diagnoses or even breast cancer deaths. Now, therefore, I, Ted Wheeler, the mayor of the city of Portland, Oregon, the city of roses, do hereby proclaim October 2020 to be Breast Cancer Awareness Month in Portland and encourage all residents to observe this day. Thank you so much. And Susan, thank you for being here today to share about the Pink Lemonade Project, and to all of my colleagues for their comments as well. Thank you for acknowledging this important month.
Thank you very much for the time on the agenda today. Appreciate it.
Thank you, you bet. Colleagues, at this point, we'll move to the regular agenda item 833.
Create a local improvement district to construct street, sidewalk, stormwater, sanitary sewer, and water main improvements in the Northwest Park Avenue and Johnson Kearney Straits Local Improvement District.
Colleagues, I'm pleased to be able to introduce this item today in partnership with Commissioner Udaley. This ordinance builds upon key approvals and directives made by the Council on September 23rd, 2020 to advance the development of the Broadway corridor. These prior authorizations, together with this ordinance for the creation of a local improvement district, ensure that this public-private partnership lays the foundation for a diverse and vibrant new neighborhood and sets a new course for inclusive, large-scale community development in Portland. We envision this as Portland's next great place. It will be a transit hub, an employment center with dense residential housing, provide a place of active recreation, and serve as an example of Portland's leadership on sustainability. It will be a welcoming gateway that will strengthen connections across the river and create a sense of belonging for all who live, work, or visit the site. Broadway corridor's location and size hold the potential to help us manage our city's growth, housing approximately 2,400 new households, a mix of rental and ownership, affordable and market rate, and providing 4,000 jobs, and to realize our vision for creating shared economic prosperity. This is one of the most complex and ambitious development projects that the City of Portland has ever undertaken. I want to thank the Bureau of Transportation, Prosper Portland, and an array of public, private, nonprofit, neighborhood, and community partners who have moved this important vision forward. I'm confident that with these agreements in place, City Council's leadership, and the commitment of our public, private, and community partners, we will build a new neighborhood that reflects our highest aspirations. Commissioner Daly, I don't know if you would like to offer any comments up on the front here.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Just to add to the mayor's comments, this LID will break up the large street grid in the Pearl District. It will connect any redevelopment of the Greyhound site to the Pearl District on the west and Old Town Chinatown and Union Station on the east. And with the existing access constraints from light rail on Northwest 5th and 6th Avenues and the current post office site, the LID will significantly improve access and circulation in this area while enabling mixed-use transit-oriented development with excellent multimodal transportation options. Wow, that was a real mouthful. I can only assume that Andrew Abbey is here to tell us more.
Thank you, Commissioner Udaley, for that warm welcome. Keelan, if you'd be kind enough to switch over to the presentation, we're going to be very brief today. We only have one slide to show to you. And if you go to slide number 2. So this slide shows you a visual representation of where those new streets are going to be built that'll break up this large street grid, as Commissioner Udaley just mentioned. So we will be extending Northwest Park Avenue north from its current terminus at White Street up to Johnson Street. We will be building a new Johnson Street to connect 9th to Broadway. And similarly, we will be building Northwest Kearney Street to connect Northwest 9th Avenue to Broadway as well. I should note for council that 154 years ago, City Council made a very controversial decision by passing ordinance number 362, which paved what then was known as B Street. It was a very controversial decision. That street today is known as West Burnside Street. So it is paved today because of the first local improvement district that the city formed 154 years ago. I'm very pleased to report to council that unlike 154 years ago, we have no remonstrances against LID formation. So I recommend that the council move this ordinance to a second reading next week and approve it next week. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Colleagues, any questions at this point? I just have an historical question. Andrew, do you know why it was controversial? Was it because the idea of paving was new and transportation was horses? What was the controversy?
Yeah, I think it was controversial, Mayor, and it's been a while since I read the history on that. It actually went all the way up to the Oregon Supreme Court, but yeah, that was the very first LID in Portland. The city was only, I should say, was only 7 years old at that point, and back then there was a lot of grappling going on with how to pave all the unpaved streets in downtown Portland. We not only had unpaved streets, we had the downtown Portland regularly flooded every year. So even back then we had a lot of unmet capital needs, and local improvement districts were enshrined in the city charter, and that was our first run at an LID. So we were just trying to make this LID go a little more smoothly than the one.
Thank you. And I just got to applaud you. You not only know how to make LID works in the present, I think that the historical perspective here is fascinating. Commissioner Daly.
Yes, Mayor, I just want to note that this is proof that you can never please all the people all the time when it comes to any transportation project. Oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. Well, just leave it there. Thank you, Andrew. It's always, well, I guess I'll also note that when we're doing major developments like this one, we need to be thinking 100, 150 years into the future, because the future Portland will be living with the decisions that we make today. So that's a sobering and inspiring thought for me. And I will add that I'm fairly certain that 154 years ago, we had more commissioners than we have on city council today. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right.
You probably are.
Yeah.
You are.
Thank you.
Very good. Any further questions before we open this to public testimony? Public testimony, please, Keelan. Anybody signed up?
We have one person signed up, Thomas Corbett.
Let's hear from Mr. Corbett. Hello, Thomas.
Hi, thank you very much. And this is my first city council meeting, and I have been in Portland just 3 years to be a grandfather. My daughter's delivering within the next 2 weeks.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I'm in St. John's, and anyhow, to cut to the chase, I think it's terrific. And I heard Commissioner Daly talk about the future, and I'm totally on board, and I will share that opinion with my friends, and I'm sure I'll read more. I'm very interested in history. I came from Chicago, and I did lots of historical research, so I'm going to learn more about this project. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate your participation. Welcome to Portland City Council. All right, so any further comments before I move this one along? This is a first reading of a non-emergency ordinance. It moves to second reading. Next item, 834.
Appoint Ernesto Fonseca and reappoint Diane Lynn to Portland Housing Advisory Commission for terms to expire October 21st, 2022.
Very good. Thank you, colleagues. The Portland Housing Advisory Commission is the primary forum for the discussion of housing policy, strategy, and resources in the city of Portland. We sometimes know this committee as PHAC. PHAC members rise above their individual interests and affiliations to take a comprehensive approach to housing policy and strategy to support the unmet housing needs of all Portlanders. Both Ernesto and Diane have demonstrated their commitment to addressing the pressing housing issues and needs of the residents of Portland. So I want to thank you, Ernesto, for your willingness to serve, and Diane for your continued commitment to helping the Portland Housing Bureau achieve its goals. And with that, we'll turn this over to Jessica Connor, who's the Portland Housing Bureau Director, presenting the report.
Hi, Merritt and commissioners.
Don't you?
It's Shannon Callahan of the Portland Housing Bureau, and I just wanted to do a brief introduction of both Diane and Ernesto, who are here with us today. First of all, I wanted to thank both of them for agreeing to, in Diane's case, continue to serve, and Ernesto for his agreement to come and join the commission during these times where our social service and community development partners are so strapped in direct service to the community. It's very refreshing and appreciated that they'd be willing to spend their time helping us advise our work as we go forward, both in how we address the COVID pandemic and look forward to a brighter future with affordable housing development. So I'm sure you all know the background and experience of Diane. She has committed herself to public service her whole life, whether it be as an elected official or the director of a nonprofit. Her expertise, especially as it relates to the community land trust model and home ownership, has been invaluable, and we are very grateful that she's willing to continue to serve with us. Ernesto, as you all know, is the CEO of Hacienda Community Development Corporation, one of the largest Latino housing development organizations in Oregon. His knowledge and expertise of over 2 decades of housing, economic, and community development, especially as they relate to serving the Latinx community, are something that we have long sought on the Housing Commission, and I am grateful to have both of them advise and frankly challenge our work and the work of the city and our housing partners and ourselves going forward. So with that, I'd love to just turn it over quickly to Diane and Ernesto to say a few words, and thank you.
Thank you, Shannon. Diane, do you want to go first?
Oh, no, please go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. Well, I just want to thank the mayor and the rest of the city council members, as well as Shannon Callahan, for inviting me to be part of this commission. I am really excited, as Shannon mentioned, to be part of the visioning as well as implementation and advising of what the city of Portland can be and will be in years to come. COVID-19 has just shown us, one more time that there are many disparities that we need to address. However, the affordable housing issue, the affordable housing shortage is not ending, didn't start with COVID, but will continue to be one of the major priorities for any city in the United States. But for our city here in Portland, it is a big, big lift that we have in front of us. But the city has shown us over and over again that they are willing to put not only their words, but also their dollars to make a difference. So I am excited to be part of this organization. I am excited to be part of this group. And I am really happy to be here now. At the beginning, when I arrived to Portland, I had a lot to learn. Obviously, I go through my own process of grieving and changing and absorbing everything that comes to me. Sometimes not necessarily in the best ways, but that's just my process. And with that said, I am delighted to be here, and I think we've found our home in the United States, and we're planning to stay here for a very, very long time. And I want to see this change happening. And if I'm part of it, from in and out, that would be just fantastic. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ernesto. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
And I'll add just a few further comments to say I'm thrilled to have my friend Ernesto join our team at PHAC to continue to work with the Bureau and really focus on the extraordinary importance of home, both housing, home ownership, the whole spectrum of needs that the city is just so it's so important to focus on all of it. And really your support as a city council to keep us involved from the community is really appreciated. It's been a really interesting experience to see what's going on within the Bureau and help support their efforts and their capacity and the resources that are needed for what I believe is the most important issue facing us in a kind of a time of extraordinary crisis and catastrophe. It used to be one at a time, and now it feels like it's compounding. So we've got to keep our eye on the prize, keep working together, pulling our community together to keep our our movement forward, to get people housed at every level. And I'm just happy to stay a part of this team. And thanks to all of you for your leadership and your service.
Thank you, Diane. We appreciate your continued service as well. You do great work. Thank you. Commissioner Hardesty has a question or comment. Commissioner.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to, this is my day to have a love fest with Shannon Callahan, Director Callahan, because I know that she takes a lot of grief from me on a normal basis. But I am very appreciative that Ernesto and Diane are being, Diane reappointed and Ernesto being appointed, because it is vital that we have diverse representation that brings their own lived experience into a variety of city oversight boards. And I know that you went back and did some more homework after we saw the initial list. And I am so grateful that Director Callahan actually is responsive to concerns and issues that are raised with her. Sometimes it's easy to dig your heels in because we're all moving at warp speed. And none of us have all the time we need to do the best we could possibly do. And as Diane said, if we were just dealing with one crisis at a time, we'd probably manage it a lot better. But we don't have the luxury of dealing with one crisis at a time because we're dealing with 4 simultaneously. And so excellent appointees. I look forward to working with you both. Diane, again, longer. You just don't go away, do you? And I'm thrilled that you don't. So thank you, Director Callahan. I hope you will save today's transcript of City Council because today I've given you a lot of love and it's all deserved. Thank you so much for your hard work.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Colleagues, this is a report. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Udaly to accept the report, a second from Commissioner Ryan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Keelan, please call the roll.
Udaly.
Well, it's very nice to see you, Ernesto and Diane. It's been a while. Proud Ground and Hacienda are two of my favorite organizations addressing our affordable housing crisis in Portland. So, of course, I'm thrilled to have your invaluable expertise on this committee. And I'll just say, it's especially impressive on top of everything else that you're doing for our community. So thank you, Diane, for staying with us, and welcome, Ernesto. I vote aye.
Thank you.
Sorry, Fritz.
Thank you both for your willingness to serve. I really appreciate it. Aye.
Ryan.
Yes, good morning. Ernesto, welcome aboard, and it's been going to be so refreshing to have your perspective. And Diane, you're kind of the definition of resilience. Just thank you for continuing to serve. And I miss bumping into you. I was from the same sector, and we bumped into each other quite frequently. Anyway, I'm glad to know that our city has both your voices at the table. Please don't be shy. Thank you. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
We are so fortunate, Diane, to have you. You are, in my opinion, one of the most courageous and selfless leaders in this community. And your willingness to serve on this commission has been invaluable to the work that we're doing through the Portland Housing Bureau and generally around making sure that housing is accessible to Portlanders. Ernesto, you're a great guy. You're smart. You're knowledgeable. You bring terrific experience to the table. I couldn't be more thrilled to have you join PHAC. So thank you for your willingness to step up. I hope you didn't check out the salary before you agreed to do this. Not very good, and the hours are long, but I know you're up for it. So thank you, and your comments about you and your family feeling that Portland is your home and where you're going to stay for the long haul. That's really exciting, and I'm pleased to hear that. So thank you. I vote aye. The report's accepted. The appointments are approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you.
The next item also related to the Housing Bureau, 837, please.
Amend approved application under the multiple unit limited tax exemption program under the inclusionary housing program for Brookland, located at 4245 Southeast Milwaukee Avenue, to increase the number of affordable units.
Dory Van Bockel, welcome. Or I can just continue to stare awkwardly into the camera. Is Shannon, is Dory not with us today?
Dory's here.
Oh,
She was just on mute.
Oh, there she is. Okay. Don't worry, that wasn't my record. I think my record was 45 minutes of staring awkwardly into the camera during that first City Club debate. Hi, Dory. It's good to see you.
You as well. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. I am here today to talk about two more multi-applications. So my presentation will cover them both, but I will start with the one that you first mentioned. But in general, I'm going to start a PowerPoint. So give me just a second to share my screen, please.
Dory, would it be helpful if we read both simultaneously, or do you have two separate presentations?
Actually, it would be great to have them both. I do have just
why don't we pause and do that? Keelan, can you also read 838, please?
Sure. Amend approved application under the multiple unit limited tax exemption program under the inclusionary housing program for Nehalem Apartments, located at 1645 Southeast Nehalem Street, to increase the number of affordable units.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, so once again, just to give a quick update on the program, so or a reminder of our history with it, starting in February of 2017, any building adding 20 or more new units is required to contribute to the city's affordable housing inventory through the inclusionary housing program. Developers must choose from several options to fulfill the IH requirement, and providing affordable units in otherwise market rate buildings if they're not either, or sending units to another building. And also there's the option of paying into the inclusionary housing fund. So along with several other incentives, the multiple unit limited tax exemption or multi program is one of the financial incentives provided to inclusionary housing buildings who elect to provide the units on site rather than paying that fee in lieu. So each multi-application does come before City Council for approval as part of the state requirements of the multi-program. So as far as the two projects then that we have here, it's the Nehalem Apartments and the Brookland Apartments. Both of these are amended applications. The buildings, after we approved them and they started the permitting process, have made adjustments to their permits, requiring us to make an adjustment to the inclusionary housing approval, as well as then the tax exemption that will apply towards the projects. So to just run through real quickly what's happened. So with the Nehalem project first, this has changed just slightly, increasing from a 63 unit 4-story building to a 75 unit 5-story building. The unit mix has not changed too much, but has increased a little bit in 1-bedroom units in particular. And so that the total affordable mix will, we'll have the 60% units for the inclusionary housing units. We are mentioning that there are some additional 80% units in this project that are being restricted additionally under inclusionary housing in order for the project to receive a larger parking exemption, which is approved through the zoning code. However, the tax exemption is only applying to the units that are in excess of the minimum inclusionary housing requirement at 60% of median family income based on the rules of the program. So there's a lot of layers on this project, being that it is a receiving site. So there is the minimum requirement of the building, and then the additional units that are being transferred from a couple of other projects in the area. And so the units that will be restricted do have to be reasonably equivalent, not only within the building providing the units, but also to the buildings that are sending the responsibility for affordability to this building. So again, there's a few different layers of programming applying there, but that's how we result in this total number of units affordable. So to break down a little further what the tax benefit, we've updated our slides a little bit from prior presentations just to try to break things out a little more. But, the difference between the prior ordinance and what we're looking at now, things haven't changed significantly, but by adding a few units, changing the sizes a little bit, going through our financial model does change things a little bit, but we're still on a total 10-year value somewhere around $430,000 is estimated in the tax exemption that would go to this building. As far as the benefit to both then the tenants and to the developer, we looked at market rents for the neighborhood where the Nehalem Apartments is in Southeast Portland in the Selwood area. And so the market rents for studios are around $1,300, whereas the 60% MFI rents are $967 or $1,290 for 80% rents, and so on through the different 1 market and 2-bedroom rents. There's an average discount across the different sizes of units between the market and the affordable rents of $409 per unit, which annually comes out to about $4,900. And so we did compare that to what that would look like over 99 years of affordability. There's a lot of extrapolation here and assumptions to be made, of course. But using that $409 of the average discount over a month, the value of the tax exemption is only $58 in comparison. And looking at it for the total building on a monthly basis, it's $16,282. So again, we've put it out then annually what that would look like. And then over the full 99 years, there's a potential rent discount if the same difference, obviously was in effect. So that's what I mean by extrapolating things out a bit. But compared to an estimated tax exemption value, there's obviously a huge significance in the really the subsidy or the discount that the owner of the building will take by providing the affordable units. So are there questions on Nehalem before I move on to the Brookland apartments?
Commissioner Hardesty has her hand raised.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I couldn't find if the square footage amounts will be the same for the affordable units as they would be for the market rate unit.
There's a requirement of the inclusionary housing program, so therefore the multi-program as well, since they're tied in this way, that any of the affordable units are at least 90% of the size of the average unit per unit type. So per each studio, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and we even break it down a little further between the unit types. For instance, with a 1 bedroom unit, some buildings have especially in some of the more, more dense, denser buildings, have really no windows in a building. They have a sprinkler system, for instance, instead. And so we are tracking those separately from a 1 bedroom with a window. So we break out all of those things, and then within the covenant, the agreement that's recorded on title to the property, and then we base our compliance on, we put a minimum square footage that at any point during the 99 years, those affordable units need to meet that limit, so that's one way they're going to be reasonably equivalent to the other units in the building.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll move on to the next project then. And that is Brookland, which is also in the, it's close to Selwood, but more in the Brookland neighborhood. Brookland, not Brookland, but and so this project also changed not too significantly. However, the increase was primarily in the 1 bedroom units. It went from 160 units to 166 with some changes along the way. And again, we don't really know exactly what caused the building to change. It was, as they pursue their financing further and move forward with their projects, they often have to make a few tweaks to make everything work. So again, the changes in this one, we have also a reconfigured building. So in both scenarios, the prior one and the current scenario, this developer is choosing to reconfigure the total bedrooms in the building into larger family size units. And so the minimum percentage of units is actually, we calculated out the minimum bedrooms, and then we recalculated into the total bedrooms they could provide as long as they were at least 2 or 3 bedroom units. So this results in a project where we will have 5 3-bedroom units and then 2 studio units that will be restricted over the 99-year period. And again, like with the other project, these units will need to have at least 90% of the average square footage for any of the affordable units based on the unit type across the building. So breaking down this one, just again, the way that all the numbers kind of break down and for the different unit sizes and rents that are calculated in our financial model. We have a little bit larger tax exemption over the 10 years extrapolated out, but not a huge significance at all between the two projects because the total units didn't change that much. And so that's about $1,200 still per affordable unit of tax exemption value per year. And how we look at that then over a monthly discount between the market rents and the market rents for the neighborhood, and then what the affordable rents are. So the maximum rents that the project can charge, and that would include any utilities as well. So I don't think I mentioned before that the power, gas, et cetera, any heating, that sort of thing would be included in that maximum number. And so the difference between the studio and the 3-bedroom apartments, again, on an average, is $695 a month, although these particular units, even at 60%, the market is fairly low and not too much higher currently, but over the year, over 99 years, we do generally expect, based on the market environment, to see market rents increase further or at a greater pace than the affordable rents do. So looking at the comparison together, extrapolated out over that 99-year period, we are assuming, again, that average monthly rent discount of $695 a month, whereas per unit, it breaks down to a $10 tax exemption on a monthly basis. And so for the total building, since only the affordable units are restricted in this case, with the projects being outside the central city, the total projected tax exemption being $83,000 roughly, based on a potential rent discount of up to $5.7 million over that 99-year period. So with that, I will complete the presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Colleagues, any questions for Dory? All right. Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm sorry. Did we just hear both 837 and 838, or we did?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, both.
So I do have some questions on 838. So this project is an interesting one. It has IH affordable units. It's the receiving site for another project's inclusionary housing units, and it has additional affordable units. My questions are about the receiving site units. How do these units compare in size to the units at the site sending the units? I apologize if you already answered this specific question when Commissioner Hardesty asked it. Don't go into great detail. I just want some assurance that they're adhering to our expectation that the units are comparable. Affordable units are comparable to market rate units.
Yes, so I did mention briefly, but I'll just quickly review that the requirement for reasonable equivalency that applies within an inclusionary housing building also applies within the sending and receiving building relationship. And so we review plans both for the sending building as well as the receiving building, and will restrict the units within the building that can be affordable based on that 90% of the average of the like units. So again, breaking down the studios, the different types of 1-bedrooms and 2-bedrooms. And so not only within the building does that have to be met, but also based on what units are being sent from other projects. And as complicated as this project is, it actually is a receiving building for 2 different other buildings, all by the same developer, and the buildings are actually pretty similar in size. So I think that's why it was a natural choice for them to choose this. This is actually currently the only building in permit that we have that is a receiving site right now.
Okay. And our inclusionary housing program requires that on-site affordable units be evenly distributed throughout a building to avoid a phenomenon sometimes referred, well, to avoid concentration of low-income housing and a segregation between market rate and affordable unit residents. So can you explain to me how the Housing Bureau considered these objectives in setting up the offsite options? And should we be concerned about multiple projects, affordable units being concentrated in one development? I am very open to being informed otherwise, but this feels like a poor door to me, where you see affordable and market rate units in one building and the affordable unit residents have to enter through a different entrance, again, to segregate people in a mixed income development. But here we have an entirely separate building, and that raises some red flags for me.
So a couple of things to address with that. So first of all, talking about where the units are within the building, within the program of units on site, there is a requirement that no more than 25% of affordable units can be within one floor. We aren't able to apply that provision when there's multiple buildings sending to one site because there's so many affordable units that they have to be just naturally mixed within the building. And also what we've seen is the way that at least in a building where there are a mix of studios and 1 bedrooms or even 2 bedrooms, that just the way the unit stack is from floor to floor, that by requiring a mix of all of the different unit types, there's also a more likeliness that they're going to be with that many units in the building affordable spread around the building. I mean, certainly there are market rate units still in this building. We do require that with the other affordable or reasonable equivalency requirements of the program, that the units have the same durability, just meaning that they are built to the same standards, should have the same, at least, durability into things such as the countertops and the flooring and that sort of thing, so that they're not markedly different units than any that would be market rate. They also are allowed to float within the units would float should one person move out or cease to be able to meet the affordable income requirements, for instance. As far as the program on a whole, I mean, certainly the offsite program as one component of the program was, there were a lot of different things that we could consider as what could make the project work, again, or, the project as a whole, inclusionary housing as a whole. I mean, certainly, since this is market driven, and one of the requirements though for sending units is that they be at the same opportunity score or better than so as far as the mapping that the city has done for amenities and other things within a neighborhood. So units being sent from one building to another need to be at a like or better opportunity area score. That was one consideration we made. And then additionally, they have to be within a half mile of the other building, so that we're getting the units still within the same neighborhood. For this particular project, it was an easier financial model for one developer to make one building. It's easier for them to lease it as such, with all of the affordable screening happening within one building and that sort of thing. So that's what they have told us what their option was. So, but again, since it is a market-driven program and allowing for more flexibility with the offsite option, this is how we've kind of made those different requirements to still get the best buildings and the best opportunities for the affordable tenants.
So what percentage of market rate units are in the receiving development?
Let's see. So this building has 30 of the 75 units, so about 40% is market rate.
Okay. That, yeah, I mean, I'm still a little concerned that this isn't entirely in the spirit that these rules were intended, and that we know current best practices are to create mixed income, unsegregated developments. And so I'm still concerned about the concentration. However, we know that about 50% of our residents need affordable housing. So in a way, it is almost a natural mix of affordable versus market rate. And I don't want to give the wrong impression. I'm very pleased to see this increase in affordable housing. And I will support this item. I'm, as I've expressed before, I'm just really interested and concerned as to whether there are some loopholes that we need to kind of tighten to drive the kind of developments that we really want to see. But this seems reasonable. Yeah. Thanks, Dory.
Commissioner Hardesty.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Commissioner Daly. As you were asking your questions, it occurred to me that Director Shannon, if you are there changes that should be on our legislative agenda? Because we've had this conversation for a while about the benefits of inclusionary housing. We now have some experience with it. And what I agree with Commissioner Daly that based on our experience now, what we know is that there are some developers that make what we're calling affordable units, because again, 80% is not affordable, 60% starts to be affordable. What we're calling affordable units are not being made in the same image as, say, market rate units. I think about the requirement of it has to be 90% of the size. And my question is, why isn't it 100%? Why doesn't it match what the market rate is? When I think about, as Commissioner Daly said, do we need to restrict making sure that there's not a separate entrance for low-income folks as compared to market rate folks? Are we looking at how we know some of the units that, pretend that they're building family units, but they build family units in a studio building? Which is inconsistent with how families live. So I'm really interested if we are contemplating some legislative proposals that actually will address some of the, let me say, shakiness around this inclusionary housing program.
Commissioner, thank you for the question. First of all, I did want to say that, we have one of the most expansive programs regarding inclusionary housing, definitely in the state, if not the country. We've chosen to have a citywide policy that prioritizes making sure that market rate developers are including some level of affordability within their building. That said, we have some sideboards that have been given to us by the state when they granted us the ability to use this program. First and foremost, we cannot require below 80% in our program, and we must provide some type of incentive. So with those are two major sideboards for the city to address. I think one of the things that we have often wanted to do was, first of all, remove any requirement for MFI, or at least lower it to 60% MFI, so that we can craft a program that better serves the needs of Portlanders that we're seeing. We have asked government relations to consider that for your legislative agenda this year. It would take state legislative action. And a couple of the other things I think you noted that in a particular building, we have made sure that there is not quote a porter. What we don't want is any amenities or any things to be denied to any of the tenants. I understand what Commissioner Udaly is raising in this particular building. And each of the buildings and the developers are choosing to adapt the program. And so there is some experience on our part that I think we need to look at, some of which can be addressed with our administrative rules. For instance, the reasonable equivalency standard of 90% is actually in the Housing Bureau's administrative rules. When those were originally crafted, no building is exactly equal in terms of the building size or otherwise. And so in trying to make sure that we also were able to get the units on different floors so that we weren't just putting them on one floor or another, we've tried to create some rules to be able to deal with the realities of how buildings show up. Because what we're doing is we're getting a building from these developers in the market, and then we're trying to apply the rules to them. So I think it is a good question for us to check. Story said one of the most important things to us when we set that, or myself, when I set the administrative rules, was making sure that we didn't see different fit and finishes, so that you didn't have a really fancy unit that was a lower income unit versus a market rate. So I think we can look at that with our team and see if there's any changes that could be made on that with the administrative rule process. On the family units, yes, I will tell you that every option that we brought to City Council when we first adopted this policy back in 2016 was calibrated for financial incentives overall. They work differently as to the actual development but the one that was not calibrated or really considered and was added late in the legislative process was actually the bedroom configuration. So I think whether or not we choose to continue to allow that bedroom configuration where you end up with a four bedroom in a building that's all studios, I think there's questions about that. And I also think there's work that our team can do to see if there's things, I think you and I have talked about this in the past about tightening up on our administrative rule side. One thing I did want to mention that you didn't actually bring up, Commissioner, but it's something that that I'm struggling with a little bit as I look at administrative rulemaking, is what is a bedroom? And as Dory earlier said, we are applying rules that are from code, but I have grave concerns about what is a bedroom size. Does a bedroom have a window? Especially as we look at the 3-bedroom bonus that you all approved through Better Housing by Design. The old school definition of a bedroom, I'm sure you all have this in your mind. It has a window, it has a closet. That's not what's in our code. So I think that there are some questions as we look at other loopholes that I've already talked to Director Durbin about looking at, because I am concerned as we add more bonuses for bedrooms, that's something that does not, in my sniff test, represent a bedroom could go forward. So I'm sorry if that was a little bit longer of a response than you wanted, but I felt that since you asked so many questions, it deserved a full response. So
I greatly appreciate that fuller response, because I just didn't mention it because I also didn't want my part of the conversation to be longer than it needed to be. So I am very glad that you brought up the bedroom size and configuration, because as you know, we all on the City Council have had heartburn on some of the ones that we've seen that have added like 10 or 20 square feet, and all of a sudden it's a 3-bedroom unit. That is not acceptable. So I am very happy to hear that you are having those conversations internally, and certainly whatever the Bureau of Planning and Sustainability can do to help us clarify that and make sure that we're not in fact disadvantaging folks who have a lower income. And let me just say again, I think we need to relook at the 80% MFI, because as you know, at 80% of MFI, somebody's making a lot more money than poor people in our community are making. And I would really like to know how that calculation actually translates into what we're calling affordable housing, because it's not affordable, not for people that are working 2 and 3 minimum wage jobs. And so that continues to concern me, because yeah, the benefit is minimal to developers, but I think we need another term that doesn't pretend that that's affordable housing. I mean, even if we call it mid-level housing, it is a misnomer to community members who think we're building housing that they'll be able to live in. And once they see the sticker shock, they know that that is not housing that's affordable, not for working class people, especially people in our service industries who are, being unemployed at high rates at this moment. So I hope we have an opportunity to deepen that conversation and then make the legislative changes or the changes at council that we need to make to really make sure that we're having an impact where we say we want to have an impact. Thank you.
Very good. And this is a great discussion, and these are definitely important data points for the future. I want to keep this moving just because I don't want to lose our quorum. I'm going to have to go pretty soon. Is there any further discussion on either of these two items? Keelan, is there public testimony on either of these two items?
Yes, we had one person sign up for both 837 and 838, Thomas Corbett.
Okay, very good.
I'll be very brief, Mayor and Commissioners. So I've worked in the housing sector in Chicago for years and was involved in the zoning discussions for the removal of the Robert Taylor homes and the Cabrini Green. Density is really important, and people have brought that up already. And so having one housing project or one building taking a majority of the affordable housing doesn't always work it certainly doesn't for a lot of reasons. That's my first comment. And the second one is that, so please, as you move forward, please look into the distribution like Commissioner Hardesty was talking about and others. And the second thing is that having been an independent building inspector doing work all across the country, my experiences with most of the model codes, and I haven't read Portland's yet, is that a bedroom is 10 foot by 7 foot minimum, and then it limits the amount of people that can sleep in that space. And also, and thank you for the clarification, in order for a bedroom, typically, not Portland, to be called a bedroom, it needs to have a window with 8% of the square footage of the floor and some ventilation to help provide circulation and light, which is necessary. So it might be just a moot point what I'm raising here if it's already been discussed by code, but those are the two issues that I'd like to bring up, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Corbett. We appreciate it. Very good. Then with regard to item 837, any further business? Keelan, please call the roll.
Daly. Commissioner Daly.
Yeah, thank you. So I was a little nervous when I saw this application. The development uses bedroom reconfiguration to provide 3-bedroom units. And on the face value, this is a good thing. We know that 3-bedroom family size, we need 3-bedroom family sized affordable units. What made me nervous is that the developer is not providing any market rate 3-bedroom units. Our inclusionary housing rules require affordable units be comparable in size and quality to market rate units. Since there are no market rate 3-bedroom units, our requirements leave a loophole that allows developers to add bedrooms without significantly increasing the overall square footage and creating truly family-sized units. So the good news is I'm very relieved and grateful that this developer did scale the size of their 3-bedroom units. The extra square footage for the average 3-bedroom unit is greater than the extra square footage for their 2-bedroom units. And while I'm not convinced that apartments as small as 864 square feet are family sized, I mean, I guess it depends on the size of your family, I appreciate the developer's effort to reasonably increase the size of their units. I support this project, but as I have said today and many times before, I remain concerned that without tightening some of our requirements, we are leaving loopholes that could lead to situations that we don't really want to be incentivizing. Projects can meet the letter of our requirements while failing to deliver on the spirit and the intent when we created the bedroom reconfiguration option. So I look forward to this conversation continuing and the Housing Bureau's proposal to strengthen our IH requirements. Thank you, Shannon and Dory, and thank you, Mayor. I vote aye.
Fritz?
Well, I especially appreciated Director Callahan's summary of the sideboards of this policy and the history of it, and I think that was a really good and succinct and yet detailed listing of all the challenges and also some of the successes. I believe this is an innovative and successful project, partly because of the work of Dory Van Bockel, who just has done a fantastic job of always being able to answer our questions. So very happy to support it. Aye.
Ryan?
Yes, thank you, Shannon and Dory. That was a great presentation. I think we're framing the dialogue that we need to have in a work session about inclusionary housing that it sounds like we could have in conjunction with the legislative agenda. Just in the last month that I've been on here, these conversations are repeating themselves. And Director Callahan, I like Commissioner Fritz, really appreciated your dialogue with Commissioner Hardesty going into the sideboards, and especially your sniff test, which I have the same sniff test as you, and it was very helpful to hear your perspective on that. So I realize we're in code, we're in the right spirit of the way the details are written, but clearly, as everyone stated, this needs to continue to evolve. And for me, it always comes down to not having enough family units for working class families so they can live in Portland. And that's really what sticks out the most once again. That all said, I will vote aye.
Hardesty?
Thank you very much, Jory, for your fabulous presentation. Thank you once again, Director Callahan. You and I have this conversation on a regular basis. I look forward to working with you to help make the legislative changes necessary, as well as whatever changes we need to make here at the City of Portland. We are starting to see returns on our efforts and around both family size units as well as single occupancy units. But as we all know, we could do better. And we need to make sure that when we say affordable from the city level, that we really do mean that it's affordable. I vote aye.
Wheeler?
Thank you, everybody, for the conversation. Good discussion. Thank you, Shannon, for the clarification. It sounds like there's a real desire on the part of the council to review those components of this program that we control directly, Shannon, and you indicated there's a couple of those pieces. Some of the most substantive conversation came around proposed changes to state statute. And so we should make sure that this gets injected into our legislative agenda. Shannon, I will await a proposal from you with regard to how you believe we should handle any further refinements on this relative to the city's own part of this. We've had, to my count, 4 different multis come before the council in recent weeks where these issues have been raised. And rather than revisit them every time we have a multi, let's please have a process whereby we either decide to move forward with changes or we decided that it's not practical or there are barriers that are insurmountable and we move on. So can I please work with you on, I don't know if that's a work session or a proposal, or maybe it just gets encompassed in the IH study that's currently being scoped that I know you're going to walk around to council offices in the very near future. But let's see if we can put an endpoint on this. I vote aye. The ordinance is adopted. Please call the roll on item number 838.
You, Daly?
Over time, these multi-items have given us an opportunity to evaluate the inclusionary housing program requirements. What I've continued to find is that this as a whole has been a tremendously successful program. So while I often have questions and critiques, I just want to make it clear that I absolutely support it. I just feel that, as with any new program, there are opportunities to tighten requirements and learn from early projects in order to really generate the types of housing that we want and need for our community. So thank you for your patience and walking through this project and answering my questions today. I vote aye.
Fritz,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
Hardesty,
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye, the ordinance is adopted. Thank you, everybody. Next item, and I believe it's our last one, is 839.
Authorize a contract with the lowest responsible bidder for the Southwest Capitol Highway, Multnomah Village, West Portland project.
Commissioner Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. Reaching the construction stage on this project is a major milestone. It's the culmination of planning, design, and community involvement efforts that go back 30 years. Active, not 150 like we heard earlier today, but 30. It's pretty impressive. Active transportation advocates in Southwest Portland have consistently rated this segment of Southwest Capitol Highway as a top priority. Their dedication was on display during the 2017 legislative session when residents advocated for $2 million from the state for the project and successfully convinced the governor not to veto it. We are pleased to be able to pool funds with the Bureau of Environmental Services and the Water Bureau to deliver a cohesive project that addresses multiple infrastructure issues efficiently in one project. BES is contributing over $10 million to this project and Portland Water Bureau over $2 million. While the project's foray into the construction manager / general contractor method of project delivery ultimately did not result in a price that the bureaus could afford, we are maintaining our commitment to contracting equity by requiring the successful low bid contractor to take part in the subcontractor equity program. This will track monthly participation of DMWESB contractors and sharing of this information at the monthly Community Equity and Inclusion Committee. The CEIC is set up to oversee alternative contracting projects, but this process will keep them informed on the utilization efforts of a larger low bid project. It's important to note that the CMGC's price was not high because of DMWESB utilization. Those subcontractors' prices were reasonable. It was the amount of soft costs, markup, and contingency that the CMGC added to the price, and we were not able to negotiate away. With that, I will turn it over to Steve. Steve, I'm going to learn your name one day. Sigethi?
Very close, Commissioner. Sigethi, no worries.
Sigethi. Okay. Yeah, weird last name or unusual last name sympathizer here. Steve Sigethi, PBOT's Capital Program Manager for today's presentation. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you, Commissioner Daly, and thank you, Mayor and other commissioners. Again, for the record, Steve Sigethi. I'm a Capital Project Manager at PBOT. I'm going to share my screen here, and if you don't mind, let me know that you are seeing the presentation slides and not the notes when that shows up. One moment, please. How is that looking?
We can't see anything. I mean, you look fine though. You look great.
You know, I practiced this like 3 times before I came on. Let me try it one more time.
I've never had to do it, and I would probably struggle, so we understand. There you go. Well, yes.
Try this again, and then I'll hit this button here.
Full screen, yeah.
And how about that?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you for bearing with me, and I'll try and get through this more quickly as we're at the end of the agenda here. So again, Steve Sigethi here, and also available here virtually for questions if necessary are my colleagues, Lisa Mozinski, Project Manager from BES, Water Bureau engineers, Christopher Chambers and Jody Inman, as well as our Chief Procurement Officer, Lester Spittler. And on behalf of my colleagues, we're thrilled to be here to authorize bidding on the project. The project is providing sidewalks, bike lanes, crosswalks, stormwater management infrastructure, and water system upgrades on Capitol Highway between Taylor's Ferry Road and Garden Home Road. As Commissioner Udaly indicated, the project has a long history of advocacy and planning and project development efforts, including 3 planning documents that you see on the left side of your screen. And then with voters approving the Fixing Our Streets city gas tax originally in 2016, we were able to put together funding commitments with our partners to start design engineering in 2016. Since 2016, in those 4 years, we've had a robust public involvement process that has informed the design. We've been working with a volunteer neighborhood group called the Capitol Highway Subcommittee that we've met with 8 times and counting. We've had a number of open houses, community walks, office hours, property owner visits, right-of-way negotiations for 90 easements, and of course, newsletters and e-bulletins and all those good things. The transportation scope consists of a sidewalk and protected bike lane on the east side of Capitol Highway from Brugger Street to Garden Home Road. The west side of the road will feature a multi-use path. We went for a narrower design on that side due to some of the topography challenges. We'll have 4 new crossing improvements that will line up with consolidated bus stop locations that we've coordinated with TriMet, and several other side street improvements, including some sidewalk on Dolph Court and paving a gravel street on 42nd Avenue. The stormwater management scope is significant, and as mentioned, we are very happy to have environmental services contributing over $10 million to the project for design and construction of these facilities. The scope on the stormwater side includes stormwater collection and conveyance on Capitol Highway, and then that collection leads to 4 new regional scale stormwater treatment and detention basins. These facilities will collectively manage flows from not just the project, but also a nearly 50-acre drainage area while improving water quality in Woods Creek, Tryon Creek, and Vermont Creek. And the Woods Creek facility includes a little bit of work in the Woods Memorial Natural Area, including stream restoration, habitat enhancement, and replacement of a small pedestrian bridge. The Water Bureau scope includes upgrading over a half mile of water mains from cast iron to ductile iron pipe, including upsizing the pipe. And in particular, that ductile iron pipe is more resilient to seismic events. Having all 3 bureaus upgrade this infrastructure in the same area at the same time really does saves ratepayers and taxpayers money, and it avoids redundant disruptions to the public during construction. And thanks to these commitments, we have what we believe is a well-funded project of over $26 million. We believe the construction contract will be approximately 2/3 of that. This ordinance also takes the unusual step of memorializing that we need to enter into a memorandum of understanding with our partners at BES and Water and get signatures from the Bureau directors before we go out to bid next month. Earlier in the project, as Commissioner Udaly mentioned, we were using the CMGC method of contracting. We had a contract with James W. Fowler and Company for the pre-construction phase, which includes things like constructability review, traffic control plans, value engineering, the community equity and inclusion plan, and we even removed some trees in advance of the project prior to construction. The culmination of that phase was the negotiation of a guaranteed maximum price. And unfortunately, the CMGC was very professional and skilled, and we had a very good relationship working with them. We were not able to reach an acceptable price. And that was after 3 back and forth iterations. So with the advice of our Bureau partners, we made the difficult decision to off-ramp this project to the low bid process. But I want to emphasize that we are committed to the equity in contracting, as Commissioner Udaley mentioned. And here are some of the things that we have done and we will be doing to maintain this commitment. During the CMGC phase, we did, with the CMGC, reached out to more than 50 DMWESB certified subcontractors for the project. While that CMGC firm is no longer on the project, the larger contracting community, we believe, is well aware of the project. And that continues with our ongoing outreach to certified contractors and minority contracting organizations, including NAMAC, OAMI, PBDG, and others. And a special shout out to our contracting equity specialist, Carrie Waters, who has really taken a lead on that outreach. As mentioned, the eventual low bid contractor will be required to take part in the subcontractor equity program, which includes a mandatory utilization plan and monthly reporting. We will share that information with the Community Equity Inclusion Committee. That program goal is 20% of the contract dollars going to those firms. And in addition, we're going to do a pre-bid meeting where we're going to reinforce to potential bidders that we need to meet those goals. And then, as we learned in the recent audit, the infrastructure bureaus, while having some challenges, have actually done well. In particular, PBOT has met the 20% and exceeded the 20% target and has reached 20% just with minority-owned businesses alone. So we think we're doing well. Obviously, as we've seen here, when we bring contracts to council, those numbers do vary by contract, but we're confident with this project because of the different scopes of work and trades involved with the project and the size of the project. We're optimistic that we'll get good participation on this project. And of course, we'll be back with you to accept the eventual contract to report back on those numbers.
Mayor?
Commissioner Hardesty.
Stephen, would you go back to the other chart? Though yes, I think that you are correct when you say you've done okay. You said you've done well. I'll say you've done okay when it comes to making opportunity available for minority contractors. But as the audit report suggests, it doesn't tell us that is so when you bundle everything together. And what we know is when we disaggregate the data, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color don't do as well as we first thought they did because of how we bundle the information that we present. I think it's really critical that you actually unbundle that information so that we know specifically where these public dollars are going. And I know having a monthly meeting of oversight, you will have the ability to actually correct course long before this project is done. And that would be my expectation, is that we are monthly tracking the utilization and not just as in a disaggregated fashion, right? I don't ever want to see another celebration of us reaching our goals that include no people of color. And we do that on a regular basis. So I appreciate you being thoughtful about the audit. But I think that we must do so much better than we've done. And as a leader in this field, because you do a lot of these kind of projects, I'm looking to you to come back with some much better numbers than what we've seen in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hardesty. That is an important point about the audit, and we will commit to working with procurement to track this, and including the disaggregated fashion that you mentioned. Thank you.
Commissioner Fritz.
Just a quick question. You mentioned the Community Equity and Inclusion Committee. Is that the Southwest Neighborhoods Equity and Inclusion Committee?
It is not. It is a citywide committee that was put together by procurement services to primarily oversee alternative contracting projects.
Got it. Thank you.
Steve, does that complete your presentation?
I just have two very quick slides that I can just breeze through. you're seeing the schedule moving forward here that has us going to bid next month and construction starting in February. And then we always like to take this opportunity to make people aware this project will involve a significant detour of southbound traffic. However, properties will remain accessible throughout the whole project, and we will work with the community to inform them of these construction impacts moving forward. So that is all. I'm happy to take questions or recommendations to authorize a contract to the lowest responsible bidder. Thank you.
Thank you. Good presentation. Any further questions before we go to public testimony? Keelan, is there any public testimony on this item?
No, no one signed up for this item.
Any further discussion before I call the roll? Keelan, please call the roll.
You, Daly.
Could we take the presentation down now, please? Thank you. I just want to quickly thank PBOT staff, including Steve, of course, for your work on this project, and to BES and the Water Bureau for your partnership. And last but not least, all the great community advocates who helped make this project happen in the first place. I vote aye.
Fritz.
Well, thank you to my staff in the Water Bureau and Environmental Services who are participating in this in a major way. It really is a good example of great collaboration. I'm very excited about this project. I'm glad it's going to continue to be able to move forward, bringing some much needed improvements in my area of the city. And so I need to honor Patty Lee and Dorothy Gage, who are doubtless shining from heaven. Very, very excited about this project moving forward. Aye.
Ryan.
Yes, thank you, Steve Sigety, right? Correct? I'm going to practice saying it. That was a great presentation. I noticed how much the revenue for this investment comes from fixing streets gas tax, and I just hope there's some sort of signage that makes it clear to the voters that we're spending this money wisely, because it's a great project. And sometimes when I'm in my neighborhood, I see these things going on, and I don't see us giving ourselves credit for expending those funds. But anyway, great presentation. I vote aye.
Hardesty.
Aye.
Wheeler.
I want to thank Steve Sigety. That was a really good presentation. I want to thank the staff at PBOT, BES, the Water Bureau, and others throughout the city who helped with this project. I want to thank Commissioners Udaly and Fritz for their leadership on this project. It's a really good program, and I look forward to seeing it come to complete fruition. Thank you all. I vote aye. And Keelan, that completes our agenda, does it not?
That's correct.
The ordinance is adopted, and we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.